right, welcome to the Krueg Show, everybody. After Giants baseball, 7-6, Giants get it done in the mountain climate. That's right. Giants and Rockies going tonight at Coors Field. Giants win at 7-6. It was a 6-all tie until Yaz hit one into the upper tank in right field, and the Giants get a 7-6 win over the Colorado Rockies. Larry Krueger, Dan Coach Emilio, Ryan Smith will join us in a bit. Ned Colletti is scheduled to join us as well if we can work out our technical snafus for the night and to get everybody up and running. But we welcome you all to join us in the chat. And, Dan, I don't know where you want to start with this one other than, man, the Giants made a very bizarre move today. And we'll talk to Ned about it if we can get him going here. Luis Gonzalez was hitting almost 350 with an OPS that put him 60 or 55 points higher than the league average as a hitter. And Tommy La Stella needed to find his way back. Do we have the boys now? We welcome. Hey, there he is, Ned Colletti. Ned, how are you?
Hey, doing good, guys. Doing good.
Oh, wow. Ryan's here as well. And Dan Coach Million. First, I don't know if Ned ever knows everybody. So, Ned, that's Ryan Smith up in the top right corner. He's our fantastic producer. You've talked to him. Dan Coach Emilio is one of our sponsors and a Giants season ticket holder and a huge baseball fan, a financial guy. And this, of course, Ned Colletti, former Dodger GM, former assistant GM for the Giants. All right, Ned, I was just saying to the guys, very bizarre as the Giants did something that I'm sure they didn't necessarily want to do today, and that is send Luis Gonzalez, who's hitting close to 350, back to the minor leagues. But this is kind of the way it works sometimes. They needed to clear a spot for Tommy La Stella, so they optioned Junior Marte back to the minor leagues. They put DeSclafani on the 60-day DL. They also called up Mauricio Llovera to give them a 13-man pen while they're in Denver. But they had to find somebody who had an option. And Luis Gonzalez is hitting 349, but he had an option. And so he goes down. And Gabe Kapler said it was one of the more difficult conversations he's ever had to have. I mean, how have you ever had that conversation where a guy literally, and he knows that he needs to stay in the majors, but because a guy's got an option, he's getting sent out. I would imagine for the ball player, it's got to be a source of unbelievable frustration, probably for the front office people as well. Have you ever been in that situation? Do the players handle it well, or do they often, have no idea it's coming?
Well, they probably know it's coming because they know their option status. And yes, it's happened in my career many, many times. And it's unfortunate. It's the rules of the game, though. And so you're always got to, when you're building your roster, you try to do it with as much flexibility as possible. Because while it's a tough situation right now, the way we just explained it, think if he was out of options, somebody else would be being outrighted off of that roster with a chance to be claimed by somebody, by another organization. So there is while it's not the most opportune situation, there are situations that are worse than that, and that's having to outright somebody.
Interesting, though, Gonzalez really swinging a hot bat, and the Giants get a win tonight. Yaz got it done, hit the home run into the upper deck. And it's funny, we've talked, you and I, Ned, for years about Denver, and it's just I love watching baseball, but, man, it is a tough watch in Denver. And I just think it's a unique opportunity that we have to have you here today. If by chance, now I'm just going to throw a hypothetical. If by chance the Rockies ownership called you today and said, you know what, Ned, we will pay you whatever you need. You're going to be the general manager of the Rockies going forward. Has it ever been proven? Is there a blueprint on how to win in Denver? I mean, you've seen it up close in the division now from the Dodgers vantage point and the Giant vantage point. What would you do if you were the general manager of the Rockies to try to, to build a winner there? Do you have an idea of how you'd want to do it?
Well, it's difficult. You're talking about a franchise that is yet to win a division. They have not won a division title, and they've had some really iconic teams. They've had one team that's gone to the World Series. It's difficult. I think what gets lost in it a little bit is the size of the outfield, the square footage. So I do think if you're going to play there 81 times, you're going to need two things. at least. You're going to need more pitching than anybody else has got. Because you talk about the Giants bringing up an extra pitcher for this series. This series can get you, but what typically happens is you're in your bullpen so much that the next series is really the trap series for your pitching staff. So if you're not there for 3 days, but you're there for 9 or you're there for 12, and you're the home team, you've got a lot more coverage as far as your pitching goes. Plus, you're always going to be pitching the 9th inning, even if you've got a really good team and you're winning a lot. You're going to have to pitch the 9th inning. The losing team doesn't pitch the bottom of the 9th if they're on the road, so you've got that extra inning too. And just as importantly, I think, is your outfielders have got to be able to get great jumps, and they've got to be very, very quick. They've got to be able to really get after it. Jimmy Leland, when he managed here for a little while, used to play his outfielders in because he figured anything over their head was going to get past him anyway and maybe go over the wall. But I think you've really got to keep that in mind because, your natural tendency is to play deep there. But there's so much square footage. It's such a large, large outfield that you've got to be able to cover it. And I think that's it. You can't give extra outs. You've got to have extra pitching. And along with the extra outs comes obviously good defense. But really, you can't be walking guys.
Yeah.
That's a key component to it. You got to make everybody earn their way on.
Yeah, I mean, and Danny and Ryan, please jump in. But it is interesting how it's Denver. The last thing you want to do is create any kind of rally. It seems like every hard hit ball on the ground gets through. Every blooper over the infield falls in. I mean, it's you sit there and you say, what lead is safe there? To me, one of the most amazing things I think in the history of baseball is that Hideo Nomo threw a no hitter there. I mean, wearing a Dodger uniform. But Danny and Rye jump in as well. If you have any questions for Ned. But to me, interesting baseball game because Giants, they're sometimes they look like they just can't hit at all. And then other games, they're in Denver now. They scored 7 runs. Yaz looked good. Belt, continues to swing a pretty good bat. Yaz is hitting 260 roughly when that's, Estrada is swinging a decent bat. The Giants played 7 runs. Even though they get out hit 11-9, they still wind up winning 7-6.
Yeah, I think tonight, uncharacteristically, Rogers, in the 7th, he walked 2 guys, and first guy he walked came in to score, and then they ended up stretching the inning, another base hit, and then run scored to tie it up. So, yeah, it's walks in that park. You just can't do it. It'll kill you every time, especially there. I have a question, though, for Ned, and it involves the recent trade with Mauricio Dubon. When you're out of options like they were with Dubon, do other teams know you're desperate to make a deal and hence they're not going to give up as much maybe because if they don't make the trade, they're going to have to DFA them?
No doubt. Everybody knows everybody's option status. People who are paying attention, and everybody's paying attention, they know what's coming up. And they probably have somebody in every office that will say, you know what, this team is going to have a roster problem here in the next 2 or 3 days. So let's keep making sure we got all our reports ready to go and see what's out there. But yes, when you're in that spot, everybody knows. And you could be best friends with somebody. But when it comes down to business, they're going to be relentless with it, and they are going to try and do the best they can and make you pay for it. But that's part of the roster flexibility. That's exactly what I was kind of referring to when we talked about the first situation with the player going down with the big batting average, because people pay attention, and you're in a spot like any other business, Dan, and you understand it in your own business. You got to have competition. If you're trying to trade a player, you've only got one taker, you're kind of stuck. Because the next best thing is you're going to get a waiver. You're going to get a waiver claim and you get some cash back. You need two teams to want to bid for that player.
Right.
One of the interesting aspects of this game tonight was the performance by Kirk Casalli, who, Kapler put in the 9-hole. Casalli went 3 for 4. He had a solo bomb, then he hit a 3-run shot. Now his average, he was ice cold just days ago. Now his average is up to 298. Ned, I wanted to ask you though because the Giants have, just made a deal. Danny asking you about the trade for Dubon. They sent Dubon to the Astros partially because they wanted to pick up another catcher, partially I think because Joey Bart's situation. They wanted to go with Bart and Casalli. Casalli was ice cold to start the year, despite the fact he showed up in spring training in great shape. Bart had a great, brief Cactus League and was looking far more selective at the plate, and he's even continued that into the regular season. But Ned, he's swinging through so many pitches. He hit 214. Joey Bart did in April. He's followed that up in May, coming into this series at like 065 for the month. And to me, when Danny and I were talking about this the other night in the post game, that when a guy's hitting 065, it's like, you start to look around for ways to get him some relief, either sit him down or get him on the injured list or send him down, something. What do you think? I mean, when you see that, you see a young hitter and he has a good spring and you're trying to kind of introduce him at the big league level. And then he has a 214 April and an 065 May. What do you think's going through Farhan's mind, Ned, when it comes to a player like this? Is there, supposedly he's out there before the game working, doing extra hitting, trying to, unearth whatever issues he's having offensively. But when do you say, you know what? No, we're going to pause. We're going to send the player back. We're going to take him off of this. You're staring at your stats and they're just going down, down, down. I mean, it's a mental struggle, I would imagine. How would you look at that if a guy's, because he's a guy that they second pick in the draft. Matt Williams did this a lot where he struggled to get it going. Eventually he established himself, but there's no rule that says he will. What's your read on Bart and how they'll play their hand of cards there?
Well, we talked about this early in the season too, when he was off to a pretty good start, that, it's great to see somebody to get off to a good start, but there's nothing like the baseball season to really, see how good you really are at a certain point in time. It's a struggle, and I think it's a unique struggle. It's probably the toughest struggle because you just don't have a surplus of catchers, and he is the catcher of the future, and you just can't send him down and bring somebody else up and expect there to be greater results. Doesn't happen like that in that position. So they are in a tough spot with that. It was good to see the game tonight and the productivity that they've got. They need that out of that position. And what I would really have to guard against is, and I don't know Joey, but to make sure that his confidence level behind the plate and in that particular role doesn't suffer because of the offense. And that's a tough thing to do because one thing leads to another a lot. But I think that is such a vital position that you've got to be able to separate your at-bats from your pitch calling, from your ability to contain a running game, from getting a pitcher through a certain situation, all those different things. That's what I would want a catcher to do. The offense, yeah, it's great to have a Buster Posey, somebody like that can obviously win, Gold Gloves and also Silver Slugger type of players and MVP, but those are rare talents. So I think they're in a tough spot with him because he's going to have to be able to separate his catching from his offense, and it's tough because every day you look at it, and the blessing of the curse of baseball is that it's every day pretty much. So you don't have, it's not the NFL where you've got a week to readjust or. If you're going to set somebody down, you're setting them down for one day, but you got 2 weeks to fix them. Baseball's not like that. It continues to grind away at you. And when you struggle, it is a daily reminder. And every day you look at that scoreboard and you look at your average, you know where you're at. It's not like you can hide it or you've got information that only you know. No, the world knows it. And the other teams know it too. So they're going to continue to exploit whatever he's got open. They'll continue.
One good thing that I would say about what they've done and what Bart's been able to do, though, is he's played excellent behind the plate, and he's really I think he's in the top 5 in framing. and his actual on-base percentage isn't too bad. He's been taking more walks this year than he ever has. I think he's walked 12 times already. And so he's finding ways to get on base. But the one thing that's really killing him at the plate is the K rate. He's close to 45%.
Yeah, leading the bigs.
Yeah, that's what's hurting him.
That's those are tough combinations right there. But as you look around the game, I know his situation is a more concern because of the expectation of the position and his expectation. But you look around the game, there are so many hitters that are struggling that it's rampant throughout the game. I think Oakland tonight, I think in their lineup, I think they had eight hitters that were hitting 220 or less. 8 out of 9 guys are hitting 220 or less.
It's amazing, really.
It's, you used to have one guy in your team hitting 220, 215, that you would have a lineup full of guys hitting 220 or less is almost unheard of. But it's running through the league. Arizona's another team. I watched the Giants tonight, but, went back and forth to the Dodger game. You look at the batting averages of the Diamondbacks. You got a lot of 230, 220, 180s. It's Joey Bart's not the only one going through it.
It's an interesting time for the Giants because on one hand, you could argue they were a little bit before their time as far as, I don't know if they expected to win 107 games last year or turn the thing around. On the other hand, they're a major market team, and they've got a very attentive fan base, as you well know, Ned, and it's going to be interesting to see how they play their hand with Joey Bart. One of the guys who's, would be a perfect fit for the Giants is Wilson Contreras. The Cubbies are already, pretty much out of it. They're out of it. I mean, they're 13-20 coming into, their series with the Pirates this week. But you got Contreras hitting 277 by these standards today. That's like a batting champion. He's hitting 333 in the month of May. And he's a free agent at the end of the year. So if you're sitting there and you're an executive and you got a guy like Joey Bart, and it wasn't your regime that invested the second pick in the draft, it was technically Brian who invested that second pick. Interestingly enough, Farhan's first pick as the general manager in the first round was also a catcher, almost as if he was saying that he wasn't fully endorsing Bart as the catcher of the future, but maybe not. Maybe they're just looking for depth at the position. What would you think if the Cubs Joey Bart he may never establish himself at the big league level offensively, or he could be in his Matt Williams late 80s phase where it just takes him 2 or 3 opportunities up and down before he gets his feet wet. I know the Giants would have kicked themselves in the early 90s if they had traded Matt Williams in the late 80s. Where would you sit on a Joey Bart situation like that? Do you look at that and say, you know what, if I could get a Wilson Contreras and have somebody that I could go try to win with this year, I would do it and not worry about if Joey Bart emerges for the Cubs in 3 years? Or do you look at that and say, man, I could look really bad in 3 years trading a guy who was the second pick in the draft, who's got huge right-handed power, for a player who may walk at the end of the year in free agency? This is a landmine of difficult decisions, Ned. It's not an easy gig.
You're absolutely right. This is why your off-season thought process has got to be as clear and as honest as possible. Because once you get into the season and a team, you mentioned the Cubs, they know you got an issue and you're calling on their catcher, free agent or not, you will pay $1.50 for $1. That's just how it goes.
Right.
There's no
screaming deals, no bargains at this time of the year.
You're gonna pay for that. That's why you're off season. You've got to know who you've got and really what the realistic expectation is. And sometimes you got a payroll issue or something, so you're gonna have to live with your decision, no matter how it goes. But if you're trying to get yourself a starting catcher, somebody as good as Wilson has been through his career and how the start that he's off, you will pay. You will pay $1.50 for $1. There ain't any way around it, because The only downside the Cubs have, or any other team has, between now and the deadline, is somebody getting hurt. Then of course you wish you had done something. But especially with a catcher, it's going to be that market for him. Guys are going to get hurt. You're going to have situations where there's a lack of offense, like we're talking about with Joey Bart. And so they're in a good spot if they're willing to trade him. And as far as trading a prospect like Joey Bart, you've got to really know your players. There's nothing more important from a development stage than to really know who your players are and to be honest with the evaluation of who they are. And that's a key thing. You can trade, we were pretty good at it in San Francisco. We were pretty good at it in LA. We probably traded between my 25 years in the two places. I don't know how many players, maybe 100 that you would consider were minor leaguers or were on the verge of being big leaguers, of which maybe 4 or 5 got to be everyday players. So you've got to really know your players in order to make those types of deals.
It's amazing, isn't it, how these trades – I mean, I think it was Heathcliff Slocum got dealt at the deadline for 1 year, and I think the young catcher going back – it was 2 guys going back. I think it was Lowe, the pitcher, and Jason Varitek.
That's exactly right.
And yep. Jason Varitek, as we all know, became the foundation piece of the Red Sox World Series titles. And Lowe was a staple of that thing as well. So, man, those, you want your Larry Anderson, okay, but you may part with, Jeff Bagwell to get him. You know what I mean? And those deals, you want your Doyle Alexander, okay, well, you know what? You may have to watch John Smoltz in a different uniform. Do you have a deadline deal that you were a part of, either as the assistant or as the GM, where you sat there and you thought as you're making the trade, oh no, I really don't like the future of this, and it worked out okay? Or do you have one where you made some deal at the deadline and you had to stare at that player for years thinking, I shouldn't have done that, or we shouldn't have done that?
Well, there's very few that I would classify in that realm. There is one that I understood it at the time that we were going to pay for it down the road a little bit. And it was when we acquired Casey Blake, who helped us go to the LCS back-to-back years from Cleveland. And our ownership situation was such that I had to get Cleveland to pay the entire salary of Casey Blake. And it cost us Carlos Santana.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. In the moment in time, and it's always, it's one thing to look back at it, that was back in 07, I'm thinking, or 08. That's a long time ago now. But in that moment in time, here's the situation. We've got a good team, but we've lost our third baseman in Nomar. We've lost our shortstop in Rafael Furcal. We've got a chance, but our left side of our infield is devastated. We needed a big league player. We needed a guy with some leadership too, which Casey Blake had. We also had a young catcher that was not going to be replaced for a while, a guy named Russell Martin. Okay. And we liked Carlos a lot, but we didn't know if Carlos Santana was going to be a big league catcher. And he's had a great career, no doubt. Great
stick.
Yeah.
But not a catcher.
Percentage, great walks. But, ended up playing first base a lot, ended up DHing a lot, but we knew it at the time. But the choice was, we were in a tough spot because we couldn't take on any kind of contract at all. It was this July that I had a chance to get CC Sabathia right before Milwaukee did. CC Sabathia, Jamie Carroll, and Casey Blake for Carlos Santana and 4 other players that were maybe going to touch the big leagues, but they weren't going to be stars in the big leagues, let alone a star in Los Angeles or in a San Francisco type of market. But once we couldn't afford to do that, Cleveland knew that. And so when I went back on just Casey Blake, they said, yeah, we'll send you Casey Blake and we'll pay for it. But you start and finish with Carlos Santana because we ain't taking anybody else. So
now, Who was your inner circle with the Dodgers? I mean, say you were part of Sabe's inner circle. You could argue maybe the two of you guys were the inner circle, but there was also Tidrow and there were a few other people, and no disrespect to any of them. But who was in your Dodger inner circle? And do you remember, was there anybody in the room banging the table saying, Ned, we can't move Carlos? You know, we can't make this trade. Was there opposition in the room, or was it like, hey, you know what, this is a high price tag because he was a established young prospect hitter, and his bat sure was fantastic in the big leagues, but he wasn't for sure a catcher, and he ultimately didn't become a catcher, really.
Correct. Well, the inner circle was Kim Ng, who's now running the Marlins. Rick Ragazzo, who did a lot of great international work for the Giants, and then Vance Lovelace. That was really the inner circle. And Stan Conti, who was a trainer for the Giants for a long time, who came to L.A. a year after I went there. He was also somebody that I probably trusted more and had more conversations with than you would typically with somebody who's running your medical department. Not on player evaluations, but just on psychology of athletes, players, because trainers know everything. They know everything there is to know. Them and really the traveling secretary and to some extent the PR people have got a better read on the personalities of people than almost anybody. But that was the inside of it. But our market in LA was such, and San Francisco maybe to the same extent, certainly was when I was there. You have a chance to win, you're going to go for it. You're not gonna be afraid. You're not gonna be shy about making a deal, and so we were able to get Casey Blake. That got us the 2 LCSs that year and the next year. Later on, that like 2 weeks after that, we got Manny Ramirez and had Boston pay that entire contract, and then I got Greg later on in that, Greg Maddux later on in August, and at San Diego pay that contract. So we went for it. And we ended up getting as far as the LCS and Game 5 of the LCS in both years versus Philly. You've got to take that chance, but you've got to know where you're at too, and know what other chances you've got. To have a Casey Blake, who was going to be a free agent, and then we signed him after that, kind of like Contreras, as you talked about a little bit earlier, kind of the same dynamic. But we also had a minor league player in Carlos Santana who was in A-ball. He was not coming to the big leagues in 2008. Okay?
Right.
And
he wasn't going to help you.
We also had a young all-star catcher in Russell. So, that's a different dynamic than if you're considering trading Joey Bart for Contreras. A little bit of a different dynamic there because you're trading, if you're going to get somebody who's going to walk at the end of the season into free agency, and you're going to trade the heir apparent to that position, that's a far different dynamic than I faced with Casey Blake and Carlos Santana. Candidly, while it's probably the one deal that I took the most heat for and probably the one on my decade of running that organization's baseball side, I'd do it again. I'd have to do it again. Casey Blake was a grown leader and a great player for us. Have to do it again. You can't keep waiting on the future and keep that like we're going to be better later. Nobody has parades for winning in AA or AAA.
That's true. There are tools to win at the big. They're tools to win at the big league level for sure. Absolutely. You got to go for it. In this particular situation, and you're Farhan and Contreras is out there, would you want to talk to Contreras' agent to see if you guys were in the neighborhood of a re-sign, or is that all no, forget that.
Well, you can't do it without permission. And most teams are not going to give you the permission to talk with that player because then you're kind of tampering with that player.
Right.
And that player now knows the situation. That
rarely
happens, and it rarely ends up good. You see it in other sports. Like I work for San Jose Sharks, you'll see it there a lot in hockey where as the players into their free agent year in the offseason, you'll see them get traded and they'll get signed and then traded type of thing. But you rarely see it in baseball.
Another question I had.
I'm dominating the conversation. Let me let Danny and Ryan get in. I got to pull a box score off the printer. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah. Another question for you, Ned. I know catching is the toughest position probably in baseball. But you see guys like Buster Posey, who played shortstop in college, and then he becomes, a Hall of Fame catcher. And you see guys like Austin Barnes, who can play really all over the diamond, and Dalton Varsho can play center field for Arizona and then also get behind the dish. When the Giants are struggling with Bart, and you got a guy like Dubon who's out of options, do you guys ever think of, like, in spring training or in the off season saying, hey, work on catching, because he can obviously play any position? Can't a guy like that learn to catch in a spot type starting and he can hit? So why not get an extra bat in there if he's got a great arm? I mean, can a guy like that learn to catch?
Well, it's the toughest position on the field.
Right.
And you can do it, but you can't do it over a spring. You can't do it over a winter and a spring. You almost have to do it over a period of a couple years. And Austin can play different places. Buster came up as a shortstop. Russell Martin was a third baseman when he was originally signed. But it takes time to get in that position and to really learn it, because it's like when we talked about, Joey separating his offense from his defense. You've got to be thinking all the time. You're the manager on the field. So you've got to have that type of brain power and that type of thought process to even consider it. Then there's so many different dynamics to it. There's a lot to learn and a lot to figure out. And, sometimes if a team has got a third catcher, an extra infielder, outfielder that can catch in the case of an emergency, that's a big plus. But very few teams are going to run that player back out there day after day after day after day either. That just doesn't happen.
I see the Giants have a guy in Double-A, Brett Auerbach, that plays outfield and is also a catcher. So is that something? I know the Dodgers seem to be kind of the ones that started that with Barnes and moving guys around. Do you think we'll see some of that type of change in baseball where there is a third catcher on the team that's a versatile utility guy? Yes,
I do. And I also think you'll see an infielder and outfielder that can also pitch a little bit. Inning here, inning there, maybe 20 innings for a season, but somebody that's got that type of versatility to it. The game is becoming more and more to that standard, which is interesting because with the DH now in both leagues, you have in some ways less need for that. National League, you always needed, whether those 4 or 5 extra players on your team, depending on how many were in your bullpen and what your pitching staff was comprised of in total numbers. You needed that versatility. You needed players that could play far more than one spot. And as you look at teams today, there are very few teams, I think, that have as many as 4 or 5 players that can only play one position. And I think that it's become it's a good point that you make, because it's become really the standard for it is you've got to be able to do more than one thing in order to be a big league player.
Hey, Ned, so following up on that, so my question kind of builds off of that. So with Bart, clearly, he's hitting well in AAA. He's like around a 300 hitter and he's hitting the long ball. But clearly, he's having trouble adjusting to the major leagues. What about, like you're saying, the catcher's the hardest position to play on the field. What would you think about, maybe just putting his bat in the lineup and having him take a break from the catching, especially now that there's the DH, and maybe iron out his offense before he goes back to catching?
Well, the toughest place to iron out your offense is in the big leagues. That's a tough place to be trying to figure it out. And, it's a thought, but again, it is a difficult situation. I wasn't always able to do it, but what was important to me from a development standpoint was to have players struggle in the minor leagues. most of the time you want to, keep watching your prospects get better and better and better and better, which is great. But the big leagues are no picnic. The big leagues are tough. There's no, you got some long bridges up in the Bay Area there, the Bay Bridge, the San Mateo Bridge, which I used to cross all the time. Big, long bridges. There's no bridge longer than the one from AAA to the big leagues. That is the longest bridge in the world, That is where the big differences are. So I wanted my players to be able to struggle in the minor leagues in front of 2,000 people, 5,000 people, not 50,000 people. Not against a guy that could make a pitch whenever he wanted to and change speeds and change eye angle and just as a master at their craft. I wanted them to struggle before they got there and figure out how to get out of it, figure out how to become successful at it. Somebody that is been struggling for a while offensively in LA is Cody Ballinger, who I always pushed probably by half a season to a season beyond his age and beyond where most people would have him because of his ability to adjust. Now, he struggled lately and hasn't been able to do it, which kind of surprises me. But I think it's very important that your players struggle before they get to the show. Because once you get to the show, it is no picnic.
It's interesting. It's interesting too, Ned, not to interrupt you, but do the minor leagues, is there, like the Giants AAA is Sacramento, is there an advanced guy in AAA? Probably not, huh?
As far as
major league teams have advanced scouts, right, and advanced scouts study the major leagues. I'm just kind of wondering in AAA how do teams prepare for you? Are there advanced scouts? Because you're not really trying to win in AAA. I guess you are, but I mean, you're really just trying to develop your players. Is it when you get to the major league level, is that the first time you're not just working against opposing pitchers, that you're working against the whatever brain power that organization that you're playing against has as far as advanced scouts? I mean, they're studying you at the big league level and they're looking for the weakness. And when they find it, man, that's all you're getting. You're getting a steady diet. You can't handle the breaking ball in the hands, man, you're getting that breaking ball in the hands. And there's some guy who's pretty damn smart, who's been in the game for decades, whose job it is to make sure that that his team is scouted, that he's scouting advanced work for his team, and he's doing a great job. Did that guy even exist in the minor leagues, right? There are no advanced guys in the minors trying to figure out your tendencies. So when you get to the bigs, isn't it like more than twice as hard?
Well, analytics has changed some of that, because you have a lot of analytics that are being kept track of everywhere. So you do have that as a tool today that you didn't have 10, 15 years ago. When we would when players would be called up, if we were the Giants and we were playing the Dodgers, and somebody the Dodgers called up, we didn't have an advanced scout the way you're describing it. You're right, there isn't that person out there. But we would call the AAA manager, the AAA pitching coach, the AAA hitting coach, and ask them, hey, the Dodgers just called up this player. Tell us what you know. How does this person pitch? What are their weaknesses as a hitter? Can they run the bases? What are their thought process? So you do have some information. And you had video back then a little bit. But today you've still got that opportunity to call your minor league staff. Plus you've got analytics. Plus you've got video. So you're going to have a pretty good feel when somebody does get called up, what they can handle, what they can handle. And I'm sure that teams that have played the Giants this year, they've scouted Joey Bart. Once you've been in the big leagues for a week or 10 days, like Vance Lovelace, one of the inner circle guys, used to say all the time, once the ink gets around, hey, no place to hide.
No, I believe it.
Well, to piggyback on what Larry was just saying, is it different today, like you said, with the analytics, that a lot of trades I notice that Farhan makes are at the minor league level, guys that maybe were drafted high that didn't do too well in that particular organization, and he sees something in him. Is he going off of analytics, or is he basing that off of scouting, because he just made a few deals with Seattle.
He made four trades with Seattle.
Yeah, and they were all guys from AAA at the AAA level.
Well, I don't want to speak for Farhan. I think that analytics plays a big role in it. I think that teams look for certain tendencies and certain areas of productivity. Even if you look at statistics or you look at an overall performance, they don't stand out, but there's probably formulas and algorithms in there that if this player can do A, B, and C, forget the rest of the numbers. You've got a chance. Or maybe we are really good at fixing players, or we have an expertise in developing spin rate for a pitcher, things like that, or changing an arm angle. There's so many different studies that go on now. So a lot of the times, it's in the old days, you look at the baseball deal of a minor league and go, what's this all about? Unless the player was hitting 20 bombs and had a 300 average, or was 10-3 on the mound. Now there's so much more information and different ways of looking at things. So I'm sure when they make a move, that they make 4 moves with one team, they're finding out different things about different players that they like, and different things that make sense. And hey, it's worth a shot, worth a chance. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Farhan Zaidi, one of the great moves of all time. Max Muncie, who we knew in Oakland, who was sitting on the couch back in Texas, wondering if he was ever going to play the game again. Think about that for a minute. The Oakland A's, one of the great franchises for finding talent that nobody else can really see, lets Max Muncie go to the point that he's home in April and thinking about going back to Baylor to finish off his degree. And Farhan calls him. Next thing you know, the guy's hitting 35 bombs a year and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So you know what? There's a method to the science that they do.
And tonight, yes,
yeah,
another find. Yeah,
there you go.
Great in AAA with the Orioles, and
yes,
Farhan gets him. Dodgers, by the way, up 5-4 now. Diamondbacks are rallying in the top of the 9th inning, so there's hope, Giants fans, that Arizona will come from behind and get the win at Dodger Stadium tonight against, it was Gonsolin against Bumgarner. Bumgarner went 5. Gave up 3 earned runs, 96 pitches for Bum. Bum's pitching well. He's got a 2.29 ERA. Gonsolin, though, is pitching better. He's got a 1.54. It's funny. Let's get your thoughts on LA for a second. They put Kershaw on the injured list with a pelvic injury, but man, and the rotation, Heaney's been hurt, so they're a little thin in the rotation with Urias and Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson. Price has been out of action since April with the COVID, and they've got this kid Ryan, is it Pepio, coming out of the minor leagues, who supposedly is pretty good. But LA's got the highest scoring offense in the major leagues. They're averaging over almost 5.5 runs a game, and they're tied with the Yankees for the team lead, or the leading team ERA with 2.74. How do you look at LA? I mean, yeah, Muncie's, he had 2 hits tonight, but he's struggling, hitting 163. And it seems like, their rotation doesn't seem like it has endless depth like it did a year ago. But how do you look at LA out of the chute, Ned? I mean, they're 21-12 atop the NL West, but the Padres are running with them. The Giants are right there. How do you see the West, this far into the, roughly 35 games in?
Well, I think it's the best division in baseball. And I think that all 3 teams should compete all season long. Dodgers rotation is a bit of a concern at this point. You lost Kershaw for some period of time. I thought that they were a little bit thin going in with the Bauer situation. And then getting Tony Gonsolin back is big. They'll get Dustin May back at some point too, maybe in the bullpen, maybe in the rotation. But it is a concern. You've got to be able to pitch, and that's the only way you're really going to be able to win. You can outscore a lot of teams, and that's one way of doing it. But I think when you get to the postseason, that gets a little bit tougher to just be able to outscore people. But you know what? They know how to win, and they know how to play. And they're excellent at what they do. it was interesting, teams that it shows you the difference between some teams. They almost got swept in a 4-game series at home by Philadelphia.
Barely picked up the win in the last game of the series.
Yeah. Gavin Lux had a 2-run double to win the game in the bottom of the 9th yesterday. But the Phillies bullpen, as good as the Phillies offense is, the Phillies bullpen, just the bullpen, walked 15 hitters in the series.
Wow.
And as you watch that game yesterday unfold, a lot of walks, Familias walking guys in the 8th inning, giving up, guy runs or scoring. All those things, you've got to be able to pitch, gentlemen. If you cannot pitch, you cannot win.
I think I was watching that. The Bellinger hit a 2-out triple, and then Chris Taylor walked, and
yes,
he was the winning run.
Yes. Because when you walk hitters, it shows you that you don't have command, or you don't think you've got enough stuff to throw it past somebody. And
right.
So, it's a compounding effort. And, all those games all weekend long, the Phillies kept giving them chances. But the Dodgers, they're going to be good. See what they can do during the course of the season to add a starting pitcher. That's going to be a key thing for them. Pepio's going to have a good career. Also, I think walked 5 in his first big league start. It's going to take him a while. What can you expect out of a young kid? You're going to expect 25 starts? No, you're going to expect some measure of quality, but also understanding where they're at in their development. So, got to be able to pitch.
There was an article in the LA Times today by Bill Plaschke talking about the kind of the continued curse of Trevor Bauer because
that sounds very Plaschke-esque.
The fact that he's, they haven't gone out and been able to get anybody else because of what they're on the hook for. Now he's been suspended, and the Dodgers don't have to pay that contract, but he's appealing it with Major League Baseball. So does that, as a GM, does that kind of put you in a wait and see mode? We stuck. We can't go make this move if we got to pay $32 million to Trevor.
Absolutely. You don't really know what the bill's going to be, but that's just part of the dynamic too. And there may be no bill, but you don't know. But again, it's almost like the Wilson Contreras situation. If there's a team out there that's got a quality big league starting pitcher and their phone is ringing in the middle of May, you'll be paying $1.50 for $1 yet again.
Yeah.
And what you're going to give up and how you're going to get after it. And that's
so better to wait till the trade deadline, dollar for dollar? Or?
Yeah, well, it gets closer, but it depends on where you're at. And it depends on where your prospects are at. And, it's a very complicated. It's always far more complicated than it looks from the outside. But, you've got to find the right time to strike.
Yeah.
And what used to happen is teams that had money had the flexibility.
Wait
they could
till
strike
August.
in the middle of July because some teams were trying to, shed payroll. Every day was vital. So, yeah, you could go pick somebody up. I think in San Francisco, we picked up Pat Rapp, in the middle of July in '97. It's going back a million years now. But that was not a deadline deal. That was
from Florida, wasn't he?
The White Sox. Yes. Yeah. And then I got a couple of guys from Florida. I got Hanley Ramirez from Florida, Ricky Nolasco, way before the deadline, because it was one team taking on payroll and the other team trying to shed payroll. That situation is always possible. But in the month of May, tough to be saying you're shedding payroll in the month of May.
Yeah. Are you doing, as a GM, are you doing chess moves in May? Because I'm looking at what Farhan's doing, and I'm thinking he just got Donovan Walton from Seattle, who looks like a clone of Tommy La Stella to me. He's a left-handed batter who makes a lot of contact, works the count, can play all over the field, has more speed than La Stella. I saw him leg out a double that was, really gutsy move for him the other day. But he's got Walton, and then he's got Gonzalez moved down now, and Duggar's on the 60-day DL, and so he's going to come back probably in June. I'm thinking he's a trade piece. Does he get a Walton to maybe even move a veteran like LaStella in a or is it just depth pieces?
No, it can be whatever. It can be both. It can be there could be another reason besides. What I would do on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day, is I would put my position players, my starting and my rotation and my bullpen, write them all down. And if something happens in the basement, where am I going? How much depth do I have at shortstop? How much depth do I have at every position? And sometimes you're writing one player's name down 6 or 7 times if you got the right player. You got somebody that can play all over the place. And you do that. And then you put another line, and now you're going into your minor leagues. If I have an injury, who am I calling up? And what can they do? And, if you're close to the luxury tax threshold, or if your ownership is giving you their own luxury their own threshold of financial pain, you may have to trade a $2 or $3 million player at some point in time for a prospect, and hopefully have that same type of player in your system. Not going to be a big league player necessarily, but somebody that might be 80% of the big league player at far less salary. So you're always thinking. You're thinking from 30,000 feet on a daily basis. You're also thinking from ground level on a daily basis.
It's really interesting. I mean, Farhan has made 4 trades now with Dipoto, I believe, the Mariners GM, just in the last month or so. If I said to you, and I don't know the answer to this, but if I said to you, what GM do you think you made the most deals with? Is there one that stands out? I mean, and when you look at that, we're looking at that from afar. You're looking at that as somebody who's actually done those jobs. When you see Team A has dealt with Team B 4 times in a month, what does that tell you as a general manager? To me, it seems like almost like, hey, you know what? Maybe these GMs have shown each other their cards and have communicated on a different level, and maybe there's a trust there that maybe they don't want to necessarily open up their cards to every GM, but maybe because they're 2 different GMs in different leagues, maybe there's a little bit of I'll tell you how I actually feel about some of these guys, and we can help each other out. What's your read on Team A dealing with Team B 4 times in a month, let's say, and not even in July, Ned? We're talking about April and May trades.
Very unusual. To make 4 trades in a year with somebody is unusual. To make 4 trades over 5 years is somewhat unusual. It's just, it doesn't happen all that much. But again,
who do you think you made your most trades with? Do you think that you could name that? And we can have Ryan look it up and see who you actually dealt with the most. But it seemed like Pittsburgh. And you guys always seem like cooked up things.
Pittsburgh a few times.
Rios and Vogelsong, Schmidt.
Oh yeah, back in the Giant days, yeah, Pittsburgh definitely. In my Dodger days, Boston.
Was that Theo at the time?
Yeah, made a couple big deals with Theo. Both of them were 3-team deals. One was for Ramirez, with him getting Jason Bay, and Pittsburgh getting involved, with prospects. And then another deal was a 3-way deal that didn't have near the star power of Manny or Jason Bay. But Theo, was always creative. Jim Hendry was somebody that you could do it. I think it is easier when you're outside of the league. I think that would always be an easier deal to make because you weren't, they weren't, neither team was that concerned about. I mean, you're always concerned about who you're getting. You cannot necessarily be concerned if you've done your homework on who you're trading. Sometimes fans get upset. Well, why do we trade this guy? Yeah, I'm glad we got this player, but why do we have to trade this player to get him? Because the other teams are paying attention too.
Right.
And they're not. They're getting paid too. This is their livelihood, and so you can never really be afraid of who you're dealing away if you're getting who you want back. But I think some of the bigger deals. I think of the White Sox deal. in '97.
Ron Schuler, right?
Yeah, you're talking about two teams in two different leagues that were never going to, cross the path unless you're in the Fall Classic. So,
hey, I tried to find it. Unfortunately, there's not really like a baseball reference for GM stats, but it did happen to pop up. There's an LA Times article, and it said the whole idea was essentially how prospects are kind of overrated, and just like that, people are so fearful of them turning into something that's going to haunt you. It says Ned Colletti traded 71 players. How many prospects came back to haunt the Dodgers? 1. At the trade deadline, the prospect hype has grown far beyond rational. So, one out of 71 is not bad.
And it was probably Carlos Santana.
Yeah.
Well, and in all those years of trading those Giants trades, I mean, I can't think of any really that come to mind. It's funny, you know whose birthday it is today? Former Giant, we're talking about Giants and the Pirates, Big Daddy, Rick Russell. And,
Former Cubby.
Former Cub. I can remember I used to have the baseball cards of the 77 Cubs, and Paul Russell with the glasses, the horn rim glasses, the big boiler. Nobody ever, people blouse their jerseys now. Not back in the day, man. If you had the boiler back then, you just had the boiler. You could see these guys belly button through those jerseys. But, that was, to me, if there was ever a year that a general manager impacted the race pre-you guys, was the 1987 Giants. And let's go back to 87. Giants had not gone to the playoffs since 1971. And now it's 1987. So there's been a lot of pain in those years. Al Rosen takes over after 96, or after 95, I should say. They won like 83 games in 96. Little turnaround. Krueger, I think, won 20 that year. Was an all-star. Yeah. And then it's 87. Now they're in 87. And Ned, I've never seen a GM make an impact on a season the way Al Rosen made an impact in the 1987 season for the Giants. In July, he trades Chris Brown, Mark Davis, who's formerly, went on to win the Cy Young in San Diego, Mark Grant, who was a hotshot right-handed prospect, and a guy named Keith Comstock, all went to the Padres. Giants got Kevin Mitchell, Craig Lefferts, who was just a rubber-armed reliever, right-handed reliever, and Dave Trevecki. And that was the first deal. Then the second deal, they traded, I think, Jeff Robinson to the Pirates, or maybe Mackie Sasser to the Pirates for Don Caveman Robinson, who was a great hitter, too. He was a great hitter and a pitcher. And then in August, they trade Jeff Robinson, a young right-handed pitcher, to the Pirates for Big Daddy, Rick Russell. And Russell became kind of the ace. And that team went to the playoffs in 87, won the pennant in 89. Ned, you're very familiar with that team. And Al Rosen, seriously, he did it in July. And then the day after September 1st, he trades Randy Kutcher for Hendu, and he gets Dave Henderson down the stretch. Unfortunately, Hendu couldn't play in the playoffs, but it vaulted the Giants into the 87 playoffs. Ultimately, they would lose to the Cardinals on the Hackman, one flap down, Whitey Herzog, Roger Craig, great playoff series. But Al Rosen, I mean, I'm sure you were in baseball. You were very aware of Al Rosen as a player and as an executive. Did you ever come across Al Rosen in any of your walks? Because, Ned, I swear to you, Al Rosen had the temper of tempers. Supposedly he overturned the spread like 5 times in 87, 86, 87. But he was a hell of a GM. He really was.
He was. Hey, look up, if you can, that the Kevin Mitchell deal. What day was that made?
It was July 2nd. It was like the day before, or July 2nd or 3rd. It was right before the 4th of July weekend. They were in Chicago, and they gave Mitchell a jersey that was 2 sizes too small, and he hit 2, I believe, 1 into the left field bleachers and 1 over the left field bleachers in his debut. It was an incredible debut.
I got to tell you a quick story with this. So I'm working for the Cubs, and I'm at home, and I'm sitting on the back porch. And just before cell phones, my landline rings inside. I go inside. It's Dirk Smith, the traveling secretary for the Giants.
Right.
And he says, we got to get into the visiting clubhouse because we've just made this big deal. And I said, so what's the deal? And so he lays out that deal. And I thought to myself, my goodness, that is as big a deal as I have heard in the month of July in a long time. It's not 1-for-1. It's like 7 players in there.
Right. It's like a 7-player trade.
Yeah. And so I knew the night it was coming down because Dirk called, helped me get him into the visiting clubhouse to get the player stuff out.
Chris Brown was an all-star. But he just couldn't stay on the field. He couldn't stay healthy. And Kevin Mitchell was a World Series player for the Mets, but he had traded to San Diego. He was from San Diego, and it just wasn't a good fit because I think sometimes being in your local market helps you, but sometimes it's too much of a hindrance. It was too much of a hindrance. He got off to a slow start in San Diego. They got rid of him way too soon. Then before the '89 season, Mitchell spends time with Willie Mays, and that was Mays when he was a younger guy, and really they spent a lot of time working in spring training. Kevin Mitchell in '89, I mean, we all saw Bonds, you saw Manny. I've seen some incredible offensive players. I've never seen any player hit the ball as hard as Kevin Mitchell did from opening day through the end of the year, like Mitchell did in '89. He won the MVP. He hit well over 300, 47 home runs, 125 RBIs, and they didn't have exit velocity back then. But man, he led the world in exit velocity that year. It was incredible.
He was a fierce hitter and player.
Yeah,
he had
unbelievable.
He had zero fear.
No.
Zero.
And it's funny. So '88, he goes. It's playing the Padres. It's the first series of the year down there, and Bruce Hurst goes up and in on him, just trying to carve out a little bit of the inside part of the plate. And it was opening. It was like opening series. Mitchell went out to the mound and just stalked him. And Bruce Hurst was kind of had like a dad's body. And here comes Kevin Mitchell out there. And I remember asking Mitchell years later about it. And when he came back, and he's like, "I like to set the tone early." He goes, "Usually, if you went out there once in April, you didn't have to go out there again the rest of the year. So I wanted to set the tone early." I always thought that was kind of made me laugh.
Not surprised.
Yeah, exactly. Man, we could spin baseball yarns. Couple last things before we let you go. There was a team today, I think it was the Kansas City Royals, Kansas City Royals fired their hitting coach today, Terry Bradshaw, and they promoted a guy named Alex Zumwalt to fill the role. Royals have scored 118 runs through 32 games. Only the Tigers, Orioles, and White Sox have scored less. Their 21 home runs trail only the Tigers and Red Sox are the worst total in the big leagues. That's always a tough call because, I mean, the players play, the coaches coach. It's the big leagues, so it's like it's on the players always. But how do you know, Ned, when you got to change the mix? Is it usually somebody's bent personality wise, and it may be a star player, and it's just easier to change out the coach, or is there a certain, is there something that you see and go, man, we're in a free fall, we're not pulling out of this? I mean, that seems. Have you ever had to do that? You and Brian, or you in LA, ever have to yank anybody's job in the middle of the year, pitching coach, hitting coach, any guy on your staff where you're like, wow, we had no other choice?
I probably had 5 or 6 different hitting coaches in LA in 9 years. One pitching coach, Rick Honeycutt, I hired the first year I was there, and he lasted probably 4 or 5 years after I left. But the hitting coach gig is difficult. It is very, very tough because hitters sometimes don't want to listen, and they don't want to. They think they can get out of it. They think they can do it. They don't need a lot of instruction to do it. And it's really the most. Every sport has got that one-on-one competition that takes a split second to occur, and that's what a hitter has got. Got a split second to figure it out, and I think that it's many times the toughest gig on any coaching staff is that hitting coach job, and it was rarely, in my opinion, that I had to change a lot of them. It was rarely the hitting coach's fault. it was almost always the players that had gone off onto their own designs on how to get out of a slump. And so you've got to make a move, and sometimes it costs somebody an opportunity as a job. But it was tough. And I had Donnie Mattingly, who couldn't do it the first year that Joe managed, had a personal issue that he had to get taken care of. But he was going to be a good one. And then my last hitting coach was Mark McGuire, who what I did, and the reason I settled on Mark is I went to my pitchers. I went to the pitching staff of the Dodgers, the guys that I knew that I knew had a good feel for their craft. And I asked them what team gave them the most trouble because of their preparation. And about 80% of it came back St. Louis. So I went after Mark in St. Louis, knowing he lived in Southern California, and a chance to get back home was probably something that he would entertain. But that's
pretty rare too. Pretty rare to get a player of that stature. When Barry did it with the Marlins, I was shocked when he did that.
That was weird.
Yeah, that was weird. But I mean, I can't. McGuire, I mean, that's one of the bigger, stature guys to try to do. I mean, Ted Williams was, managing with the Washington Senators, but he was a bomb. I mean, DiMaggio did some stuff with the A's, right? There's always been, former greats who have gone on and been in the dugout, but it just seems like you don't see players of the McGuire ilk, especially in the modern era where the money is so great. They don't often step into those hitting coach roles.
No, but he was excellent, and we would have you're always having staff meetings, not always, but pretty regularly, and he was always kind of quiet in those meetings, and so I'd have to kind of prod him a little bit for his opinion on some different things, and once he started talking, he was like brilliant.
Really?
He was very, very sharp. I was surprised that Barry didn't have success in Miami. Barry is one of the smartest baseball players I've ever been around, and genius at it. And he would take a day or two in spring training and go over to Indian School Park when the minor league complex was over there, and spend the day with ask for 4 or 5 young hitters and spend the day. And the coaching staff, the minor league coaching staff, would stand and watch him teach.
Wow.
And most of the time, coaches don't want another coach getting in, getting into the business type of thing. But people were like taken aback by his brilliance and his knowledge of what he was talking about. But I was surprised that he did it, and that I was surprised that he did it only for a year.
It is interesting. I was talking to one time to one thing I love about baseball is the pregame interviews. The postgame you can have. I don't want to sit there as a guy's putting on his clothes and what happened. What happened? It's like what do you think happened? If they did well, they don't want to analyze it. If they did badly, they don't want to dwell on it. It's like I hate the post game. There's nothing worse than the post game. A guy's putting on speed stick, and some guy who just finished his second hot dog and a third soda is like for free in the press box. It's like, what the hell happened? What's going on out there? It's like, sorry, when I was putting mustard on my second dog, I didn't notice. No, but
I have to clip that for our intro. Just I hate the post game.
I hate the post game. But the pregame is awesome. I think there's some of the greatest moments I've had in media. I sat down with Bill King in Oakland one afternoon. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He's spinning yarns. I mean, Bill King, and then others. One time I'm sitting there on the bench. Braves rolled in to Candlestick, late 90s. Leo Mazzoni sits down. Leo Mazzoni was a great guy. I loved Leo Mazzoni. And Maddox was on the team at this time. So I guess it must have been 90s. And we start talking, Leo Mazzoni starts talking about Johnny Sane. And I started asking about the greatest pitching coaches of all time. And I gave him some love. I said, a lot of people tout you, Leo, as one of the great pitching coaches of the game. What do you think? Who are the great coaches? He starts talking about Johnny Sane. And then he tells me about a book I should go read about Johnny Sain. There's a chapter in this book about Johnny Sain. So I get the book, and I can't even remember the name of the book, but I read this chapter on Johnny Sain. And Johnny Sain was incredible. I mean, like one of the most incredible figures in the history of baseball, as far as the guys who didn't win 20 before they worked with him. They won 20 while they worked with him, and then they never won 20 again after working with, you know what I mean? And he did it with the Twins, and he did it with the Braves, and he did it with the White Sox. And I remember talking to Rags, and Rags swore by him. He's like, oh my God, Johnny Sain, Johnny Sain, Johnny Sain. This guy was incredible. Wilbur Wood. He starts naming all these guys who won 20 in Minnesota and with the White Sox that didn't win 20 before.
Dick Tidrow loved Johnny Sain.
Yeah, I mean, did he? I believe. And Dick Tidrow had a pretty good eye for pitching talent in his own right. But I mean, is there? I mean, you know, these guys who are considered the great coaches of the game. I mean, is there somebody like you've met? You were around Maddox. I thought when I interviewed Maddox, I was interviewing like, you know, Abner Doubleday. I mean, this guy seriously, like he almost like invented the game. Ned, he was saying his knowledge of the game was so immense, so incredible. So I don't know, where player wise, coach wise. If you say the smartest baseball people ever, you can have a staff of, you know, a hitting coach, a pitching coach. You know, who do you want? Who's like the savants of baseball in your mind?
Well, as players, it's easy for me. Smartest hitter I've ever been around on a daily basis was Barry, and the second smartest was Manning. One left-handed, one right-handed, but just saw the game differently, saw it in slow motion and played it at real speed, and had photographic memories of situations that had occurred before. I swear Barry would set guys up. You talk about Kevin Mitchell setting the tone early in the season. I would not be surprised if Barry set pitchers up early in the season. And then when it got to be a key moment later in the year, they would try the same thing against him, and he would crush it into the cove. But just genius at what they did. And pitching-wise, Greg and Zach Greinke. I think both guys are really so smart at what they do and just observe so much. You know, Clayton is another guy that's right up there. But those two guys are guys that can really have pitched as their stuff has declined and continue to pitch and continue to be successful. But I traded for Greg twice. And I think both times he was throwing probably 84 to 86. Think about that.
Like Luis Gonzalez.
But still, you know, winning a lot of games and competing. Just had great feel and great geniuses at what they do and what they did. Those four guys, coaches, you know, Don Zimmer was really a great strategist, somebody that helped Joe Torre.
Joe Torre swore by Zim. Yes. Ned, not to interrupt you, but Joe Torre swore by Zim. Roger Craig, the hum baby, had Zim on the giant bench, I believe, one of those years. Zim was the manager of the Cubs in the 89. Wasn't he the 89 manager of the Cubs? Yes. And you know, I remember Torre one time. I did an interview with Torre when the Yankees opened at Pac Bell. I mean, I don't think people remember that, but the Yankees came and played a game at Pac Bell, and I interviewed Joe Torre behind home plate, and I talked to him about Zim, and he said, you know, like he has total trust in Zim, and that you know, he has total belief in Zim, and that he just trusts him with everything. And I remember going into the Yankee clubhouse, and Zim would walk in. I mean, this guy was a character, man. I mean, he would have a swagger, and he's kind of doing one of these, and the players all loved him. But he was a heady player, wasn't he? He played with the Dodgers.
Yes, played on the 55 team. That won the only championship in the history of Brooklyn.
I hear that party was pretty decent.
Probably, but he was, you know, one of my favorite people in my career, in my time, and somebody who, you know, was really he kind of played the role of, you know, kind of like, well, does he really know what he's doing, you know? But boy, smart. I mean, really smart. Had seen it all, thought out of the box, thought different things. People would say, after in the post game when they weren't putting on the speed stick, they'd say, So you kind of managed away, out of away from the book. You didn't, that's not in the book. And Zim would say, "I never seen no book. What book are you talking about?" I mean, we had a triple steal with the bases loaded in St. Louis one Sunday afternoon because he thought that they could do it. I mean, how many times have you seen a triple steal?
No.
Bases loaded and everybody's running and everybody gets to where it's supposed to go. But, coaching is difficult. Rick Honeycutt was a great pitching coach. Rags, one of the great pitching coaches of all time, pitching coaches, to me, sometimes there's guys that can fix a delivery, and there's guys that can help with a thought process, and there's guys that can help with different pitch development. It's rare that you find somebody that can do all of that, and both Rags and Rick were guys that could do that. I'm sure Leo could do. When you think about the longevity of Dave Righetti in a Giant uniform, pretty epic. Yeah. You think about the longevity of Rick Honeycutt as a pitching coach with the Dodgers. And when I hired him, he had never really done it before, but he took to it quick. Interesting, both left-handed pitchers, both guys that were starters early in their career and ended up in the bullpen late in their career. And, but both they probably have 30 years combined as pitching coaches in the big leagues, two guys.
I think of a guy, shares both organizations. It was a great pitching coach for years and years, yes. Ron Perinoski.
Yes.
Perinoski was a terrific pitching coach.
Yes.
And hey, I got to ask you, because you're a unique guy, because you understand the market of the Giants. You understand the Bay Area market. Attendance is down. Now, I think it probably has a lot to do with maybe attendance being down throughout the game, and the economy's tough and the inflation and the pandemic and all the different things that have hit our world. I think we'd be naive to think that those didn't have huge factors in the whole thing. But some of the people have come through and said, the Giants didn't have the kind of off season. They didn't bring in the kind of player. They don't have a Barry Bonds. They need a headliner. They won 107 games. So they, obviously did a lot of smart things, and Farhan knows what he's doing. But, give you an example this offseason. I think Aaron Judge is a free agent, grew up in the Valley, Central Valley Giants fan, right? He obviously is a huge figure, and he would put butts in the seats. And I don't know if Farhan's going to be of the mindset to go after that kind of a player. I would guess not. But where do you sit, and where do you think – what's the most important thing when you're putting together a team? I mean, do you think it's important to have that draw that sells tickets, or is it simply based on, hey, let's, they won 107 games, just keep doing what you're doing? Yeah, there's a bunch of nondescript guys that people don't know their names, and there's not a lot of brand value to a lot of these guys, but you know what? You're winning and you're doing it under budget. That is in and of itself fine. Or do you look at the Giant situation and go, no, you know what? It's San Francisco, California, and you need a star, and you need an Aaron Judge. And yeah, you can make all these other moves, but you better have your Barry Bonds. You better have your Aaron Judge to drive the whole thing as far as ticket sales. Obviously, the ballpark's paid for, and the ownership group is going to do quite well going forward, regardless of what they do free agency wise. But what is your feeling on the big name guy who drives attendance versus these moves on the margins that are effective and help them win 107 games last year? How much do you need the headliner in this market, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's always nice to have that star. But I don't know that you're going to be selling 3+ million seats in either market if you're not winning. And I think you've got to win. And if you win, I think you're going to draw well. And if you're going to win and you've got an Aaron Judge or you've got a Barry Bonds, yeah, you're going to even draw better. But I think you do have to win. I don't think people are going to pay to watch 90 losses are going to pay to watch 100 losses, which some franchises do regularly, including the one that let Yastrzemski go. So I think you've got to win. I think the star value is there, but I think if you had Barry Bonds and you lost 100 games, I don't think you're doing $3 million. I think you've got to win in both markets. I think in almost every market you've got to be able to win, and I think that's the key thing is winning. And then if you can add a star like that, drawing power, yeah, that helps. Can't win, I don't know that you're going to be able to do much.
Yeah. All right, man. Hey, we're going to let you go. Oh, go ahead, Danny. You got a
question? I have one question for Ned. And this, I know it was one of the better trades you made back in 2012 with Miami when you got Henley Ramirez and helped the Dodgers, get to the, into the playoffs. I think at one point you guys were in last place, I think, if I recall, one of those years, and he helped turn the club around. But in 2018, I believe you were working for the Dodgers still, right, at the post game?
Yep.
What was it like for you to watch Eovaldi kind of beat the Dodgers, and he was in that trade that you gave Eovaldi to Miami for Ramirez? Did you have any emotions watching that?
I'm so glad you brought this up. As we were talking earlier in the show about guys that you traded that, were tough to move or this or that, and I brought up Carlos Santana. Obviously, Carlos has had himself a really, really good career. The toughest conversation I ever had trading a player was Nathan Eovaldi. I loved his competitiveness. I loved his style. I loved his, as I just said, his compete. And I thought that he was going to be special. Miami was not going to do the deal without Nate. And he was touching the big leagues. He was in St. Louis when we made the deal. And it was in the middle of the night, and I had to send Rick Honeycutt and Vance Lovelace. I was not with the club, to knock on his door and bring him to the phone type of thing. And after I think he lost that. That was the 18 inning game. I think Muncie homered. I think he pitched at the end of that game, and I think he gave up that home run. But I talked to him at the end of the World Series and congratulated him on his career and what he was able to do. And he signed a big contract with Boston after that season. But really one of my favorite young players, just because of how he went about what he did. So, I was glad Muncie ended the game, 18 innings, doing post game. It was about 1 a.m. And obviously a big World Series win. But somebody who I really wish every success to, Mr. Eovaldi, who is a good person and somebody who competes to the utmost.
Yeah.
I'm watching a little tube last night, dialing around the channels, and all of a sudden I hit the channel that says Moneyball. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll watch some of that movie. That movie gets me every single time.
So rewatchable.
And there's this part where he's like, get Sabes on the line about Venafro, and you hear go, hey, Brian, I can get you Venafro. Why would you do that, Billy? It was like, it was all back and forth, and it's just some great stuff for baseball fans to just sit there and watch that movie and get a kick out of it. You did a deal with Billy Beane. And you know what? As great as the great Bean is, he's played by Brad Pitt. Our guest on the Krueg show here, I think probably got over on that deal. It was actually a pretty fair deal. Billy got Milton Bradley, and you guys got Andre Ethier. Right. And Ethier was a top A's prospect. And Bradley did do well in Oakland. I think him and Swisher got along real well, and they went to the playoffs, I think, with Bradley that year. But you got Ethier as a younger player who became kind of a foundation piece for you guys. Do you remember that deal and how it came down, and what was it like dealing with Billy Beane?
Well, obviously, I'd known Billy for years, in my Bay Area time, and always enjoyed talking. In fact, I miss not talking to Billy now because we always, we may have had a 45-minute conversation of which the first 5 minutes was business and the last 40 was this conversation. Somebody who I really enjoyed talking to. When I got to LA, it was pretty much a mandate that I had for myself to trade Milton. Some tough stuff had gone down. I had talked to some players there who I had known and had respect for, that I knew that they were going to give me the lowdown. And some were friends with Milton, but they just said, this is not going to work here. So I had to find a team to make, to match. And I couldn't find anybody but Billy. And Billy, I guess, didn't know that at the time. And it was my first winter meetings, and my first winter meetings, I had joined the Dodgers about 2 weeks before the winter meetings. We had no manager, we had no coaching staff. We had probably 7 or 8 players that would never play in the big leagues again. I was inheriting a team that lost 91 games. If you can, think a Dodger team would lose 91. That's what I was inheriting. And I had some good young players coming, and Russell Martin and Matt Kemp and Chad Billingsley and Jonathan Broxton, James Loney. And I'm sitting in Dallas at the winter meetings, and I signed Grady Little to manage, and I signed Rafael Furcal as my first signing, and I'm starting to make some progress with Nomar and Kenny Lofton and Billy Miller. And but I got to get Milton out. I've got to make a deal. And so I go to Billy on it. And, I had liked Ethier. Ethier was a AA player at the time. He was in the Texas League, I think. And had played well. And I asked Billy, I said, hey, you got any interest in Bradley? He goes, yeah, I have interest in Milton Bradley. What are you looking for back? I said, probably a prospect, I've got some veterans and I'm going to backfill here, but I'm going to need, I got some good young players coming like that. They probably had another guy. He says, who would that be? I said, probably Ethier. He goes, I won't move you Ethier. I said, oh, fair enough. Then I won't move you Bradley. And I was hoping.
This is a hotel at the winter meetings?
Yeah. And I was hoping that, I had canvas and my scouts, on the floor trying to drum up some business. And I was getting nowhere. And then I got a call from J.P. Ricciardi, who was a GM of Toronto and who had been Billy's assistant GM.
Right.
And he started asking me about Bradley. And as soon as he did, I was thinking, I wonder, and I've never asked Billy or JP, but I was wondering if Billy put him up to it to see what else I had, to see if I had more action on him, because he won them. And, I bluffed my way through a conversation with JP, and Billy called me back like maybe end of that day and said, if you give me, there was another player too that we traded, Diaz, a third baseman, I think, not a prospect type of guy, kind of a throw in to make the deal. If you'll add him, I'll trade you Ethier. And I said, oh yeah, I'll add him.
Nice.
You look at the history of the LA part of the franchise, and you'll find Ethier's name in quite a few spots in the top 10 all time.
Yeah, he was a good guy. Played at ASU, and he was a real nice young guy.
One year he had 7 walk-off hits. 7 walk-off home runs.
Good player. Good player.
Yeah, he really added to our group.
I find it pretty fascinating, though, Ned, that you were with the Giants from, I think, 94 to 04, and then you leave to take the GM position in 2005 with the arch rival Dodgers.
After 05. 05 was my last season.
Okay, 06. Okay, so 06 you become the, and at that time, the Giants were seemingly, they had been in playoffs 97, right there in 98 with the wild card, or to get into the wild card with the
Traxel Gardner, one gamer at Wrigley.
And then, 2000 through 2003, maybe the most consistent team in baseball. 2004 have another pretty decent year. And then, so the Dodgers kind of steal you from the Giants, who are kind of the envy of, baseball. And then the Giants turn around, and after seeing the Dodgers from really like 2012 to, through this whole last decade, win the division, and the Giants steal Farhan from the Dodgers to start replicating what the Dodgers organization is doing. Do you think those two organizations are 1-2 as far as how they're run in baseball right now?
I think if you look back probably to 1997 through today, and you look at how many times those two franchises have played in the National League Championship Series and World Series after that, I don't think you'd find two franchises that have done that in the history of divisional play. I think they've, when you go back through it and you see how many NLCSs they've both been in, it's phenomenal because you're coming out of the same division, no less. It's not like you're an NL East team and an NL West team. And so, there's some symmetry to that. But that these two teams in the same division would have gone to the playoffs so many years and have gone to the NLCS, which is really tough to do. Winning is difficult, tough to do. And then the World Series. The Giants have been, in 4 World Series and won 3 of them. Dodgers have been in 3 World Series and won 1 of them. NLCSs, I think I went to the 3 in LA went to the playoffs 5 times, 3 NLCSs. Sabes probably went to the NLCS 5 or 6 times. Since I left, they continued to get to that level, one franchise or the other. I think it's remarkable. I think both franchises have been ultra successful, and not for a short period of time, for 25 years. That is a long period of time because you're going to go through the peaks and the valleys. The team I inherited lost 91 games. Some Giant teams between 05, 06 and 2010, lost 90-some games, I think, in San Francisco. So, you go through those dry periods too, and you get the desert once in a while. But to be able to win as many games as those two franchises have won over a 25-year period, I think it's remarkable.
It really is interesting too. I think when you study baseball to see the impact of the midseason maneuvers. I just think you were with the Cubs. You go back to the Sutcliffe trade in '84. Mel Hall and Joe Carter. I mean, that was a pretty good haul going to Cleveland. But Sutcliffe goes 16-1, and the Cubbies have a magical '84 year. And then you fast forward to '93, I think one of the greatest Giants teams I've ever seen. And they didn't want to part with, I think it was Al Rosen, or maybe it was Bob Quinn, I believe. Bob Quinn didn't want to part with Solomon Torres for Dennis Martinez. And the Giants went 17-4 down the stretch. All 4 losses were Solomon Torres losses. They came up one game short. Thank you, Mike Piazza, game 162 at Dodger Stadium. They make that trade for Torres for Dennis Martinez, El Presidente. There's no doubt in my mind the Giants get over. Sherholz picked up McGriff from Randy Smith, I think, trading Melvin Nieves and Donnie Elliott and Vince Moore. And they won 80% of their games in '93 down the stretch.
Yeah, they never lost.
Sabes and you and pick your year. I thought my favorite was 02 because the team needed an ignition at the top of the lineup, and you guys went and got Kenny Lofton, and the offense went from scoring like 3.5 runs a game to scoring like 6.5 runs a game in the final 32. Huge offensive momentum, carried it right into and through October, and almost won a World Series because of it. So I don't know. To me, it seems so often, how you play your hand of cards in the middle of the year and how you manage your club up until July, and then what you can ultimately get out of July is such an art form, and you've been right in the center of it on both ends, 2 different franchises. I know you already wrote the book, The Big Chair, but I with like a second book just talking about July, because it just seems like that is where, especially in the modern game, it seems like in the last 35 years or so, it's like, man, there have been a number of GM moves that have propelled their team into October and into, winning the World Series. And the GM oftentimes has a huge hand in whether or not, you guys get over or fall short.
That's in fact, that's a pretty good idea. A book called July would be a pretty cool book.
Yeah.
If I can find some time, Larry, I may take you up on it.
Seriously. That would be so cool to hear your guys' anecdotes of trades that came down, trades that almost came down, trades that didn't come down. The dynamic of everything. I mean, heck, I'd love to hear Sabes spin yarns. When we talk about doing a GM show, I'd love to hear Sabes talk about the Cody Ross waiver wire from 2010, where it's like, hey, you don't want him to go to the Padres. Let's block him to go to the Padres. Suddenly the guy's the NLCS MVP that year. I mean, it's amazing some of the stories that come out of July.
I learned from Dallas Green, who used to say, when you have a chance to win, you better get after it because you don't know when it's coming back around. And I think Sabes had the same upbringing with the Yankees, with Gene Michael. And then we worked together. And one of us didn't have to convince the other one that was the right way to do it. That's what we did. And we went for it every time. And I've been blessed to have 40 years in the game. I don't think I've had more fun or more tremendous conversations just deep into the night, actually deep into the morning, as I did with Sabes for 11 years. And it's something that will always be special to me. But we had a chance. We went for it. And then I left. And now we're both in the same division. And we've gone from, we're still great friends. We'll always be great friends. But suddenly now, we can't be friends. This isn't like Billy and JP, where JP runs off to Toronto and, you got two different divisions. No, we're talking about like the biggest rival of each franchise. And, but
too bad you guys never made a blockbuster.
No, well, we made one trade, the only trade in like 30 years. I think
Mark Sweeney, Travis Denker.
Travis Denker, yes.
But I mean, could you imagine if you and Sabes had made a giant Dodger blockbuster? Oh my goodness.
I don't think we would have ever done anything close to that. But it was, but we always felt if we have a chance, we're going for it. We're not gonna, we may give up something, but we also knew our players. And I tell you, it's not everybody can play in every market. And there were players that I traded. There was one player, I won't mention his name. When I traded him, you would have thought I traded the next Babe Ruth. This player I knew could not play in the LA market. It was going to be too much. Lifestyle, just the expectation was going to be so heavy. Never do it. And ended up playing in the big leagues for a minute and never did much with another franchise. And so, there's not everybody can play in San Francisco either. There's different expectations in different cities. I think Philly, Boston, New York, unique places. But I also think San Francisco and LA are unique in that, they've got kind of a whimsical or laid back scouting report from other places in the country. But you better win. To the point about having a star player, you better win. People in both cities, they're going to find something else to do with their disposable income if you're losing 95 games or you're not making the postseason. They will not do it. They're not going to boo you like Philly or Boston and New York and just ravage on talk radio 24/7. They won't show up. They will tell you how you're doing by their absence. I think both franchises, you need a special type of player to do it.
Since you're talking about different cities and fans, Giants just left St. Louis, and that seems like a town that just really gets behind the Cardinals, win or lose. They just seem to be a very classy town. What's your view of the St. Louis Cardinals organization and their fans?
Well, it's like the players to me. The players I hated, and I don't really hate. The players that I'll use the word hated the most were the players who caused me the most grief from the opposition. And I can say the same thing about St. Louis. You know, my last 2 years as a GM, we got beat by St. Louis in the NLCS in 13 and the Division Series in 14. I sat in the same seat in the same box 2 Octobers in a row and watched my team get eliminated. My Cub days, even as a kid growing up, it was the Cardinals. The Cardinals of Bob Gibson and Lou Brock and Kurt Flood and Mike Shannon and all those guys, Timmy McCarver. It's like, whoa. So they have a tremendous fan base and a tremendous organization. Means I need to respect them, which I do. Doesn't mean I need to like them.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the way we feel about your Dodgers too.
Yeah, I get it.
But I was thinking this show, it's pretty cool. We got 4 in the box, 2 Italians, and then we got Caceres as one of the sponsors. So Larry's doing all Italian here.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, Ned, I love listening to you spin yarns and give us anecdotes and talk about old stuff and just talk about the game. Because the dialogue around the game is one of my favorite parts about covering the game. And you and I have done this for years and years. And, man, I hope people enjoy it as much as I enjoy it. And judging from the comments and the people watching, I guarantee you there are people that really do get a kick out of this. So we'll let you get on with the rest of your night. For people tuning in, Dodgers did beat the Diamondbacks. 5-4 was the final at Dodger Stadium. So LA gets the win. They're 22-12. Giants get a win tonight in Denver, and they're back at it tomorrow night. Marty will join us in the postgame tomorrow night. But Ned, we love having you on the postgames. We'll schedule another one here in the next few days and get you back. And we really appreciate your time, and we'll let you get on with the rest of your night. But thanks for stopping by the Krueg show and giving us so much great dialogue. Really appreciate it, man.
I love the game, and I love talking about it. And people, it's the thing I miss most. I
believe it. I
miss 4-hour games or 3.5-hour games or an hour-long 7th inning. But I do miss talking about it.
You don't miss Denver. Sabe's never missed Denver either, man. I mean, my
Sabe
goodness.
used to make me go all the time to Denver. And so I learned to walk around the stadium from the 7th inning on and listen to the crowd to know how we were doing. Because as you said, an hour and 50 minutes ago or whatever,
yeah,
it was a tough watch.
Oh, man. I went to a game there one time. I was in town for my wife's sister's wedding. I asked the Giant ticket guy, can you get me some tickets? He's like, oh, yeah, I'll get you some great tickets. I'm like, great. So I go, he goes, how many do you need? I go, 7. He goes, 7. Wow, okay. So he gets me tickets right behind the Giants dugout. And so I'm fired up. It's a little pricey, but I'm like, who cares? We're on vacation. We get to the game. We're walking in. It's late May, and we're in Denver, and it's like really, really sticky, kind of sweaty out. But the sky's kind of gray. And I'm sitting there wearing jeans, and I'm walking in going, damn, I should have wore shorts. It's hot as hell. I'm going to sit there. I'm sitting there for a couple innings. It's just dying, sweating. And then all of a sudden, the sky just turns in like a blink, and all of a sudden the sky is totally black, and it just downpours for like 2 hours to the point where they suspended the game and made it up in September. And it was like, I've never been to a baseball game that within literally like 40 minutes, I was wishing I was wearing shorts and then wishing I had an umbrella. It was like, Denver is wild. The weather. I mean, if you don't like the weather, don't worry about it. It's going to be different in 15 minutes. Stick around.
But we ate it next.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't. I don't think I'd be a baseball fan if I lived in Denver. Ned, have a great night, man, and we'll catch you soon.
All right, guys. Great to be with you.
The great Ned Colletti stopping by the Krueg show, and man, he's awesome. He is awesome, and we appreciate Ned stopping by and spinning yarns with us. Let's pay the sponsors. Dan Coach Emilio is one of our great sponsors, and Danny happens to where can we find Dan? Oh, there he is, right there. Hey. Dan, let's talk a little bit. We'll put you in the big box. There we go. We'll move him in right there. There we go. Give Danny a call, 925-628-9966, securemoney.com on the web. Dan is a retirement planning specialist. And Dan, obviously, there's a lot of people concerned about their money. They're concerned about their retirement. They're seeing inflation skyrocket. You've got decades of experience. You're born and raised in the Bay Area. And people, you can help people get an immediate 10% premium bonus on their principal retirement account. Tell people a little bit about what the experience will be like if they dial you up and want to get a hold of you and take advantage of your services.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, first of all, I don't think people are concerned about their money. They're concerned about Tyler Rogers throwing strikes tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, when you give me a call, we're just gonna chat and find out exactly what your goals are, what you're looking to accomplish. I'm gonna help you navigate through some difficult times that we're facing as our economy is very shaky right now at best. With inflation, all the different things happening, you got to make sure that your money is growing, outpacing inflation, but it's safe. You don't want to risk all of your assets where you can get really hurt in a market that all of a sudden you're looking at a 30-40% decline. It can happen. It can sometimes happen very quickly, as we saw in the past in 2008. So with my type of products that we use and the portfolios that we work with 100% safety. So we're not using all of your assets in these safe products because you do need diversification, but you want to make sure that a portion of your assets is guaranteed safe against any kind of market decline. So if that is something that is of interest to you, give me a call and I'll help you, get there and reach your goals.
There you go. SecureMoney.com on the web is Dan's website. And then 925-628-9966 is his phone number. And give him a call. Give him a call and let him, give you a consultation and get you up to speed on where you need to be headed. We also want to thank Telmetrics.co, Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics. And if you're an orthopedic surgeon or an occupational therapist or a chiropractor or a physical therapist of any kind, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice and will greatly benefit your patients. Telmetrics uses computer vision and artificial intelligence, and they provide a platform for outpatient rehab therapy services, both in the clinical and telehealth environments. And using Telmetrics can improve your patient's experience and much more. So for all your sports injury needs, or if you're a physical rehabilitation specialist of any kind, make sure that you utilize Telmetrics.co, Telmetrix.co. And thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics for being a proud sponsor of the Krueg Show. Also, thanks to the New York Style Italian Sausage Company. They just came aboard, and we love them. Glad they're aboard with us as well. And thanks to Contreras. If you want to buy merch, that's right, we got Krueg Show T-shirts, and you can get them in person at Contreras Italian Menswear in Dublin, California, 7372 San Ramon Road. Say hi to Tony Casera. Get in there and get yourself a Krueg Show T-shirt. And some of the shows ahead, we'll be giving out Krueg Show T-shirts to some of our listeners in the days and months ahead. And we appreciate everybody joining the conversation. All right, guys, let's finish up in the chat. Tomorrow we see the NBA playoffs get rolling. It's going to be interesting. We're down to the Final Four. It's Miami and Boston in the East. Game 1 tomorrow night in Miami. The Heat are a 1.5-point favorite to go up 1-0 in that series. The Warriors take on not the Phoenix Suns, but the Dallas Mavericks. Unbelievably, Wednesday, Game 1 at the Chase Center, or at Chase Center, I should say. Golden State a 5-point favorite to win in Game 1. And we definitely want to hit the chat as well and see what people have to say. But guys, give me your thoughts as I hunt through the chat looking for some of the better comments. And if people want to, somebody just asked actually if Ryan could put up the call thing. Can you put the call link in, Rye? We'll go a few more minutes so we can get some of the people who didn't get the chance to weigh in via the chat. Fable JVC says, "Sweet bonus time on the Krueg show." Yes, we go a little bonus time with Dan Coach Milio and Ryan Smith. I know. Everybody's got a different thought on the Final Four of the NBA playoffs. I like Boston and I like Golden State, and I think Boston, Miami goes 7. I think Golden State, Dallas goes 5. I've studied Dallas. I've looked at it. I realized they beat Golden State 3 out of 4 in the regular season. I still like Dallas. I still like Golden State to beat them in 5. I think Dallas gets 1 game. I think every single game is going to be close. Maybe the Mavericks could blow them out one time if it was a situation where Golden State no-showed after getting up maybe 3-1 or something like that, or getting up 3-0, I should say. But I like Golden State in 5. I like the Celtics to win the whole thing, probably in 7, but I'll say Celtics in 6. Celtics in 6, Warriors in 5. Those are my picks. Warriors, Celtics in the finals. Give me your guys' thoughts on how you think it's going to go.
Well, I did hear possibly that Marcus Smart, is he questionable for tomorrow night?
Oh, I haven't heard that.
I heard that on
somebody's out. Kyle Lowry's out
for Miami.
Yeah, Lowry's for sure out.
I thought I heard Smart. I was listening to. Hey, speaking of,
okay,
midfoot. So I think Miami might get game 1.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if Smart is out, and I think I look for the Warriors to really come out and start to play some of their best basketball. Draymond Green was.
Oh, someone's at the door. Sorry.
We also have a donation here. Jaguayo56 donates $5. He says, "Krueg, I'm just blown away with the insight into the nuts and bolts of a baseball organization. Ned Colletti is a baseball treasure. Great show." Jaguayo56, I agree with you, man. I thought that was awesome. Jimmy Mole says, "Making the Krueg show America's largest." Jimmy throwing $10 into the pot. A little donation from the man. He looks a little bit like Fidel Castro in that picture. Jimmy, we love you, brother.
Yeah. Draymond's comments. You see that his comments about the turnovers?
That it's on him?
Yeah.
That's why I love Draymond. That's why I love Draymond Green. Because Draymond Green doesn't point the finger. He points the finger at himself.
Right. And I really think they'll turn.
Let's get the door. Who's at the front door?
So I answered, but I didn't hear anything. And so I just hung up. But
doorbell ditch. We get doorbell ditched.
Here we go. All right. Hello?
It's Jay Hutch.
Hello. It's Chardol Goop.
Chardol, yeah.
Chardol in the house. What's up, Chardol?
I was just saying today was a great win by the Giants. We took care of the Rockies 7-6. Kirk Casalli had an amazing night. He knocked 2 home runs. So good. I wanted to say you did a great job and you got us the win. You're filling in the shoes of Buster Posey, who's one of the greatest catchers, and keep doing a great job. And if you keep doing things like what you did today, we could sweep this Rocky series.
It's funny. Yeah, I really think the Giants, again, there's 2 ways to look at the Giants this year. When they're playing the best teams in the league, and those teams are who? The Dodgers and the Mets, or like some good teams at home, like Padres in San Diego, St. Louis in St. Louis, Milwaukee in Milwaukee. Then I think they're gonna, they'll win some, they'll lose some. They won't struggle, but they won't rampage. The rest of the league, they're gonna freaking rampage, and that includes Colorado. I really believe the Giants are just going to dominate almost every team that's not, the handful of top tier teams in the National League. The rest of them are just going to get worked. by the Giants. So now they're in Denver. What I love about tonight's game was not just Casalli getting loose, but Brebbia looks phenomenal. And Camilo Doval looked really good in the ninth. So I like what I'm seeing out of Brebbia. I like what I'm seeing out of Doval. It seems like those guys, more times than not, are reliable relievers. Rogers, you never know what you got. Dominic Leone has kind of been up and down a little bit at times this year. Wood battled through, got into the fifth. He gave up 3 earned runs. I'll take it at Coors Field. They just got a break day when Sensatella went out with the injury, and then the Rockies had to go to tie block. But I just think that the Giants are going to beat up every non-contending team in the National League this year.
Yeah, and the break they got with getting blocked. And go ahead, Chart.
Go ahead, Chardall.
Yeah, this win against the Rockies, this definitely made me feel good as a Giants fan, because we totally got demolished by St. Louis yesterday. It was not even a contest. I mean, we got killed by that Cardinals team. It was
it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Some games are going to get out of hand. They all saying in baseball, it's like, hey, you know what? No matter what, you're going to win 50, you're going to lose 50. And what do you do with those other 62? That's kind of really what it's going to be. Think about all the years of baseball. You've never really seen anybody, win fewer than 50. And, as far as, it's like you're gonna get those 50 wins that you're gonna win no matter what. You're gonna have 50 losses that you're gonna lose no matter what. And then you got those other 62. And if you can make hay, and win a bunch of those games, you're a playoff team. You're a playoff team. So there's always that's the one thing about baseball, is that it's not, you can go through an entire football season and never get blown out. And that doesn't happen in baseball. You're going to get blown out. So you just got to roll with it, right?
Man, I can't wait for Chris Bryant to come back, man. When I was kind of a little upset when he went to the Rockies.
He's not coming back. He's not coming back. He's
coming back. I'm saying that, because I wanted to see him play for the Rockies, man. Because he's on the IL right now with that sore back.
He's just Chardall's he's just like, I love Chris Bryant was a good Giant last year, and he wants to see him have some success this year.
Well, you know what? I was shocked that they paid him that money. I really was. I didn't see that coming at all. But you know what? I'll say this. I had him on the show last year. I really like him. I really like Chris Bryant.
He's a nice guy, yeah.
Nice guy, down to earth, gets it, totally gets it. Hey, Chardall, appreciate the call, man. Have a phenomenal rest of your night.
So in the Western Conference Finals, I got the Warriors winning the first game by 50, and I got the Warriors winning the second game by 60.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
Did he say 15 or 16?
He said 50.
50 and 60.
50 and 60.
Game win by 50 points. Second game win by 60.
Hey,
there you go.
That'll do.
Chardon, we appreciate it, brother. Have a good one. Jenny Vegas says, I love KB's smile. She loves KB's smile.
Great smile.
Hey, the break they got tonight by getting Block in the game, he's not available probably the rest of the series. They only have one other lefty in the bullpen. So if the Rockies are throwing right-handers, probably – well, I think Freeland goes Wednesday, so he's a lefty. But tomorrow night, they don't have any left-handers in the bullpen except one. And
tomorrow it's Cobb against Cool.
Yeah, so 2 righties. But they probably don't have anybody available left-handed unless they bring somebody up tomorrow. So the Giants can really stack that lineup with left-handed hitters.
No question. I don't think that most of these teams in the National League are any good. I don't think they can really run with the Giants. Chase Shears says, you guys are the GOATs. We appreciate that. We appreciate that very much.
Hey, Larry, did you happen to read that Bill Plaschke article that he was referencing?
I looked at it for about 5 minutes this morning.
So I just ran through it for about 5 minutes myself. I just got to say, can you guys chill out? Dodgers, what Plaschke? the
He's always ripping everybody.
Yeah, we're talking curses. We're talking curses.
Hey, he's the Glenn Dickey of he's Glenn Dickey South.
Like, oh no, because you don't have 5 all-star starters this year. Like, it's like you're 22-12 and you're one of 2 teams with a plus 70 run differential. Can we calm down a little bit?
Seriously. By the way, Tommy LaStella was back tonight, guys. What'd you think of Tommy LaStella? He only got the 1 AB and then they yanked him for a pinch hitter.
Yeah. Ruff came up and smoked two shots, and
I thought that one was gone.
Ruff is looks like he's back. Told you, just give him a rest. Don't let him play every day, and let him pinch hit when its time comes, and let him start against lefties. That's his role, and now he's back to where he was last year. He's just smoking the ball again.
Oh, I mean, he's a force against lefties. 2 hits tonight. He scored a couple runs. I'll tell you though, it was tough to see the Giants send out Luis Gonzalez today. Not just because the great Dan Coach Emilio located him and spotted him in spring training, but also just because Gonzalez has been one of their most reliable hitters. And they struggle at times to score runs. And there are games where the Giants look kind of anemic offensively. And I didn't like that at all, sending Luis Gonzalez out. I mean, I realize it's temporary. He'll be back shortly.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's back this weekend, just because they'll be at home. And
but that tells you how much they want the 13th pitcher in Denver, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
Wow, there's your indication about how teams view trips to Denver. They want 13 pitchers at the ready, and they don't want to get into a situation where they in any way tax their staff and kind of throw their staff out of rhythm. So it's amazing how that now has been prioritized, and guys will, managers would rather go with a short bench than be caught in Denver with 12 pitchers instead of 13.
It was interesting tonight because they were pinch hitting a lot. And I was like, I forgot Flores was on the bench. I go, they were bringing up a right-handed batter. I go, who do they got left? And it's like, oh, here comes Flores with bases loaded. But, I kind of was a little bit bothered, I think, that they were taking the lefties out so early. I think it was about the 5th or 6th inning. And I know they were rallying and they were going for the kill for as many runs as they could get. But you knew that the Rockies were going to go to right-handers at the last couple of innings. And in that last inning, Wade would have led off, and then it would have been Jock. And it was Slater and who batted? Was it Wilmer? Who batted second? No, not Wilmer. It was
Peterson.
Ruff.
Jock Peterson, wasn't it?
Well, he was in the 2-hole, but in the 9th, Slater led off, and then it was
Flores.
I think it was Ruff. Ruff.
Oh, it was
Ruff? No, not Ruff.
No, it was Flores. It was Flores.
Flores. Yeah. So that's right. They moved different positions, but Flores came in for Jock. So I was like, dang, Bard's taking down these, and then when Yaz came up, I was like, hit one out, Yaz, because he's going to throw that stinking slider right to you. Just be ready. And man, he golfed that first pitch. They needed that so bad because it felt like a game that if it went extras, it just felt like it was going to go to the Rockies.
Yeah, I agree.
Matthew Mears says, the guy with the best average on the team, let's send him down to the minors. Okay. Yeah, I didn't like that at all. A_Brody7, did the Dodgers win? Yes. And that is a final, right? LA got over.
They won by 1. Did you know that they, prior to their last 2 wins, which were both by 1 run, they'd won every game by at least 2 runs this year.
Really?
Yeah,
they hadn't had a single 1-run win all year.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing because the betting line is always minus 1.5, and you usually get some pretty good juice on that, and so they've covered it every time they've won.
Does Bum go tomorrow night?
No, he went tonight.
Oh, he went tonight. Okay.
Yeah, he went tonight. By the way, I thought the Giants played exceptional defense in the infield today. Longoria had a nice play.
Yeah.
Brandon Crawford had a phenomenal play. Tyro had a beautiful play at second base. Belt had a couple nice stretches for balls. I mean, that's a pretty good defensive infield if you think about it, around the horn there. Belt, Longoria on the corners, Crawford and Estrada up the middle. That's pretty nice. The Giants defensively, when Duggar comes back, have a pretty nice defensive baseball team. Really, I mean, they don't have the Cardinals' Gold Gloves, sitting around.
I was going to say,
but the Giants have, they're taking a backseat to nobody defensively, especially in the middle of the diamond. If when Duggar gets back.
Well, let's talk a second about Duggar because he's not coming back.
You're looking to trade
late
him.
June. I don't see a spot for him. If there's not a spot for Gonzalez,
a lot can happen between now and then.
Right,
I mean,
But if there's not a spot for Gonzalez right now because they're stacked right now with outfielders, where are you going to put Duggar? I mean, I'm not putting Duggar. Duggar can play center field better than Gonzalez, but Duggar's a solid, very good plus defender. But
he's your best defensive center fielder. Let's be honest.
Well, he is, and I think Gonzalez
plays a huge center field.
Yeah, I think Gonzalez plays a better center than he does the corners, but. Yaz plays center well, and Slater does a good job in center. But the thing I don't like with their defense, you talked about defense, is seeing Wilmer Flores at second base late in the game, no range. And if LaStella's ever playing, he's not the greatest with range, and he's coming off an Achilles. Estrada's your best second baseman. And then this Walton kid who's I just think something's coming later in the year.
Let me ask you about this one. There's an interesting name brought up in the chat here. A_Brody7 said David Villar is an option to bring up as well. Ryan, can you look up the David Villar stats in the minor leagues right now?
Giants got like 12 homers.
Giants have a guy named David Villar. He's in AAA, doing it in Sacramento. Not on the 40, man.
Not on the 40, but he's got like 12 homers, and he's hitting.
He's not the same Villar who runs really well. He's not Jonathan Villar.
Yeah, he's hitting 310 with a 427 on base percentage and 12 homers.
12 home runs. How many ABs?
That 113.
So he's got 12 jacks and 113 at bats. That means he's on pace for like 50 in a regular year.
He hit 20 last year and 385.
I think I'd like to see him. What position is he playing?
Third base, right?
Yeah, he is listed as a third baseman / first baseman.
A_Brody7 says David Villar, an option to bring up as well. I think he might be onto something there.
Well, they got Prado down there playing third too. He's on the 40. Is it Prado? I always get that name wrong. The guy they got from Seattle. Pablo. That's right.
Padlo with a D.
Yeah, Pablo. Pablo.
Oh, here's the other one that's interesting. And I saw this kid parking shots. Did you guys Rebel 444? Austin Dean dropping bombs and sack as well. Austin Dean hit 2 bombs. I saw him hit one out to left center, and it was a no doubter. So he's got some power.
Here, why don't I just pull up the River Cats?
Let's check. Let's look in on our River Cats before we get out of here.
Yeah, they don't have too many guys on the 40 that are on the River Cats. It's the only outfielder on the 40 is Ramos.
All right,
and
an average.
Then you got Padlo's on there, Vosler.
Padlo's hitting 325.
So Luke Williams, I mean, think about the difference between minors and majors. Luke Williams is hitting 424 in the minor leagues. I mean, he's freaking Ted Williams down there. He's like Triz Speaker. He's like walking around he's like a stuff of legend. 424 with a 460 on base.
Well, and if you look at all these guys that are hitting over 300, Bryce Johnson has 91 ABs, but other than that, it's 33, 40, 29. But then David Villar, 113. Like that's a nice, healthy little sample size there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I wonder if you, on your 40, if you keep a guy that's kind of a fringe guy so that you can move him off, that when a guy like Villar you want to put on the 40. They got a guy down there at AAA. He's on the 40, and I've never heard of him. Kai Tom.
Yeah, they just picked him up. He was with the A's, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, 298, 2 home runs, 84 ABs.
Or was
Yeah,
he
and who's the
Pirates?
other guy
Was he
that-
Pirates? Where's Kai Tom from?
I don't know, but he's a little guy.
Yeah, he was with the A's.
He was with the A's. Yeah,
And
he's
the
a-
Pirates before.
He's kind of a, isn't he only like 5'9" or something like that? And he
5'9", 185. That's a thick boy.
I mean,
Honolulu, Hawaii.
yeah, and then you got.
what are you trying to say, Danny? Because he's 5'9", he's not worth it?
No, I mean,
Short people have no reason to live?
Is he like a
Is that what you're
Marvin
saying?
Bernard type guy or what? I mean,
The fighting hydrants. Remember Armando Rios and FP Santangelo and Marvin Bernard?
Yeah. But then they got another guy in this trade the other day from with Seattle. He looked like based on, I can't remember his name now. Is he on there? Let's see.
Dude, what's going on with Ramos, by the way? 193?
Yeah, and only 3 jacks.
Jim Molay, my buddy from my Lambda fraternity brother, says, "What the hell's wrong with Ramos?"
Well, you heard Ned tonight say he likes to see his struggle in the minors. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe let him work himself out of it, because if you're struggling at AAA,
193. What does 193 equate to in the bigs? 043.
Here's your Austin Dean guy. Has similar plate appearances to Ramos. He's hitting 240 with 8 jacks.
He's kind of. I wonder if he's kind of like the what's his name, Duvall type player. He kind of reminds me of that build when I saw him.
He looks like Harrison Bader. He doesn't have long hair like that, but he's short, compact, powerful guy who can hit the ball out of the ballpark. But that's too low. I mean, 240. I mean, seriously. I mean, Joey Bart hit 294 in AAA, and he's struggling to make contact. So, I mean, it's a pretty lean AAA right now. You know, it's not bolster. It's not packed with guys who are ready to contribute. We've got one here. Brody_7 says, I think Genovez deserves a chance to fight Bart for a spot, and Villar needs a chance as well. Genovez is hitting 262, 347 on base though.
Yeah,
that tells you he draws walks. So Farhan's loving that. Kid's drawn 10 walks. So,
well, what's this Villar? Is he a big guy? What is he?
Yeah, he's like 6'1". Like
6'1". Is he 200? What is he?
Oh, definitely 215.
Talking to Ned tonight, it seems like, I mean, you can pick it at the hot corner. It'd be great to take a guy like that, and over the next 2 years, there may not be a spot for him on the big club right now. With Longoria, and then you've already got Padlo, who's on the 40, who's a power guy at third base, and then I know they drafted this Casey Schmidt, who was a two-way
like a pitcher,
player.
right? He went
out of San Diego State. Yeah. He's
a closer. He was a closer and a power hitting third baseman, wasn't he?
Right, but they've got him in third base. He's projected to be, kind of maybe.
But what level's he at, Danny? He's lower levels.
I think he's
A-ball, right?
Eugene. Is he at Eugene or San Jose? He's at one of the two. But what I'm thinking about is, why not take a guy like this Villar and train him over the next 2 years to become a catcher and have a power hitting guy that seems to can hit for average as well too. I know he's hitting 310, but gosh, if you could do 240 in the majors and have 20 knocks, and and learn to catch. But I mean, I just think, I know catching's not for everybody. I never wanted to do it. I was a shortstop and a center fielder, but there are certain guys that, you know, can just catch. I know guys, I thought Dubon once was a catcher in his early career. I thought he was, but maybe I'm mistaken. But thought he had some spot starts at it. But I got to believe that this team, as we see it today, it's going to change.
Oh, these guys Farhan makes trades like, you know.
Yeah, but I'm talking about I'm thinking this is the year that we have to we may part with someone that's on the big club that we don't want to see go, because
who are you hinting at there?
You know, I'm not hinting at anybody, but let's look at this.
Come on, Danny, you're hinting at somebody.
Yeah, you got a hint.
Okay, let me name you the outfielders.
Come on, Coach Emilio. Yeah,
I don't
have come on, Coach.
Yeah. If it brings you back somebody good, I was thinking possibly a Yaz. I mean, you got Jock.
You're trading Yaz?
I'm not trading Yaz. I'm just saying that.
Who are you trading?
Something I don't know. I just think, you know, Jock, Wade,
JVC,
Jock
JVC
Wade,
is just so cryptic.
Jock, Wade,
say
Yaz.
it, just say it.
Jock, Wade, sorry. Jazz, Gonzalez, Duggar,
who's Jazz?
Slater, and
are you saying
Ruff, all outfielders. That's what, 7 guys. I don't see Duggar coming back to the Giants big league team. If everybody's healthy, where are you going to put him? Who are you going to send down?
You got to remember this, though, Danny. I mean, think about it. When he is the best defensive center fielder that you have in an enormous center field. I mean, remember the catch he made in the playoffs last year? That incredible catch. You know, none of their other guys make that catch. So I don't know. I hear you.
Well,
I'd rather have a better offensive player too.
Yeah.
And I'd like, but I mean, I haven't quit on Duggar. To me, Duggar is, you know, viable to come back and to play a role. I mean, I'll say this, in this ballpark, the way the Giants play, all the one-run games, I'd almost rather, you know, go trade for a better corner outfielder and play Duggar in center. You know what I mean? Don't worry about what he doesn't give you offensively. Just take that incredible defense and just consider yourself lucky. Find your offense in other spots. I hear what you're saying, but
I just don't see him doing that because they're not going to play him over Yaz in center. And who are you going to in right? You got Wade. You're gonna put Wade or Jock. Let's talk about what all these guys are. I mean, these guys are all platoon guys. If I busted out the splits on some of these guys, Slater doesn't hit righties, Wade doesn't hit lefties. You know, you name it. It's a outfield that's packed full of guys who are platoon players who have splits that are night and day difference between lefties and righties. So who's the one guy that?
Maybe Luis Gonzalez.
Yeah, they can hit lefty. What's his splits, right?
Coach Emilio was on that guy early, by the way.
I bet his splits. I bet he's hitting 270 still against lefty. I know he's hitting over 250 against lefties.
Plus, the guy can pitch. I mean, he's like Ruth, right? You can always use him to pitch.
Did you see that? Like Ephus pitched, then he fires one at 85.
Yeah, I saw that.
You know, I mean. I don't know why guys.
What do you think of that, by the way? Ned said he thinks there's going to be a time where you're going to see a lot more hitting pitchers and or pitching, you know, hitters that also pitch.
Well, Casey Schmidt might be an example of that. You can give you, as you construct your roster and say, hey, you know, why do I need to carry 8 pitchers in the bullpen? I can carry 7 in this series. Because Schmidt can give me an inning, and now I've got an extra position player. You know, I like that because when we were kids, playing Babe Ruth, Little League Babe Ruth, all the way through high school, your best athletes were your pitchers.
Oh, oftentimes I coach Little League. I mean, more times than not, your starting pitcher was your leadoff hitter.
Yeah,
Who's the best
or your
player
power
on your
hitter.
team.
Or,
Yeah.
he's the best player in your team. Yeah. So guys learn to do that. They get to become specialists in, what it's crazy, the baseball rule of the pitcher, can't catch a pop-up on the infield. I mean, everybody pitcher gets out of the way, and sometimes the pitcher is some of your best defensive player,
Hey, guys, I've got the splits, and they're actually pretty surprising.
What do you got? Let's see them.
All right, we got versus right-handed pitchers. Clearly a lot more at bats, but he's hitting 389. And then versus left-handed pitchers, he's only had 12 plate appearances, but he's hitting 111.
Oh, not 250? I can't believe
so
that.
there you go. So much for that. So much for he's the same guy right and left. He's a total platoon guy.
One hit.
But he hits the ball. He doesn't strike out that often, I don't think.
No, he only has one strikeout, but he also only has one hit.
I mean, that's really, you say, what do the Giants need? I mean, they could use like a Josh Bell, he's a switch hitter, but just somebody who could be in the lineup in that outfield or in the DH spot every day. Not just against lefties, just against righties. I mean, I like their lefty lineup, righty lineup, and it's great to have versatility on your bench and that kind of thing. But it would be nice if the Giants had one outfielder who played regardless of if it was a righty or lefty.
Well,
look what happened today. Sensatella comes out. They go to Ty Block. Ty Block sat down 6 in a row. Why? Because the Giants had a bunch of left-handed hitters all in a row trying to defeat Sensatella. So they load up these lefties. Sensatella gets yanked. Suddenly Ty Block going a couple shutout. Eventually they would get to him. But, I mean, this is the downside of a lefty lineup, a righty lineup. Suddenly you're susceptible to people playing games on you or yanking their guy and going to somebody, going against your guys. And then now you either have to empty your bench and, now who's going to be coming off your bench late in the game? You start wasting guys. So it's a difficult thing. To me, a guy like Josh Bell would be a phenomenal addition because he's a switch and his numbers against righties and lefties are similar, and he's got power and he can play first. He can DH. I mean, I don't think he can do anything else defensively. He's not a great defensive player, but that kind of player, I think, would be a guy to look for them to acquire in the middle of the year.
Yeah, they do need, they used to have switch hitters. Every team used to have 2 or 3 switch hitters. I remember the St. Louis Cardinals. They were notorious for like 4 or 5 guys with speed.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day, you mean, when they had Tommy Herr and all those guys?
Yeah, just all these switch hitters.
Ozzie and, Willie McGee and just all kinds of guys who could just slap it the other way and run for days. I mean, that team put so much pressure on you. It was unbelievable. I would love to see how baseball players today would react if there was a team in the league like the Cardinals of the 80s.
Vince Coleman.
They got on first. They're stealing second. They're stealing third. There's tons of pressure. You're throwing over. They're running at all times. I mean, that's the one thing. Everybody kind of plays a similar style now, so we don't get a chance to see it. I would love to see. Don't you think it would be cool if you had a team in the league that just ran at will and just constantly ran? I think it would make it
tag. Why not?
It would be interesting.
It's part of what makes the Warriors so hard to like. It's why we always get up early in these series. It's like you're playing a traditional style team. Like I think that's where the Warriors, it's going to really help them versus the Mavericks. I think they're going to get off to a quick 2-0 lead because, I mean, it freaks you out. You're not used to that completely different style of offense. Right. So in baseball, I mean, that would be a pain in the arse to have to deal with.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I'd like to see even guys that are facing a tough lefty and they've got the shift on and they're getting overpowered. They look horrible on the first 2 pitches and they're not even close. And they've got the shift on. They got the third baseman playing deep short over towards second. Just take your shot I mean, you probably don't have a shot at getting a hit. Square up and lay one down the third. Just bunt it. Don't try and bunt it perfectly down the line. Just bunt it, 5-6 feet off the bag, and you got an easy knock to get on base. And I'm not talking about doing that on a regular basis. I'm talking about if you're overmatched. And you saw it tonight, even with Belt looked silly against the lefty, and he had 2 strikes. They put that shift on. I'm just thinking, go ahead, try it.
Isn't it amazing, by the way, how often Belt gets into a 3-2 count?
It's incredible.
Basically every freaking at bat, he's 3-2. He can start 0-2, he gets to 3-2. He can start 3-0, he gets to 3-2. The guy is sitting 3-2 like
80. It seems like over 50% of the time.
I would say like 9 times a week he's sitting 3-2. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'm sitting there watching every at bat, and I'm like, this guy's going to 3-2 again, isn't he? And sure enough, there he is. And Brandon Belt's worked the count full to 3 balls and 2 strikes. It's like, wow.
Doesn't he hold the record of most pitches in one at bat? Like it was
I think so.
Years ago. It's like 20, 21, 22 pitches or something like that.
The guy would, he'll just foul things off over and over. Couple last texts before we bolt for the door. Jaguayo56 donates $2. Said, Krug, great show. Appreciate your hard work. Man, I wish we were working hard. We're just having fun more than anything, but we appreciate you listening for sure. Somebody, here we go. SG Sports Channel says, are you doing a Giants post-game show tomorrow? Yeah, well, today is Monday. Tomorrow is Tuesday. And tomorrow, I believe we're going to see this guy right here, Ryan, and that guy right there, Dan, and I believe Marty Lurie is going to be in the house. So Martin Lurie LLC will check in with Marty and talk a little Giants Rockies game 2. We're not going to do a post game Wednesday for the day game because we got a lot of other things going on, and I believe Wednesday is game 1 Warriors Grizzlies. So we'll probably welcome back Cyrus and Kylan on Wednesday, and Giants are off on Thursday, I believe, gentlemen. Is that true?
Yes.
And then so we will be back with you on Friday for a little game 1 Giants Padres, and we'll do maybe a little post game from Giants Padres on Friday. But
you got the Warriors going Friday night too.
Warriors go Friday night
every other day after it's Wednesday.
So
you got
what time's Friday night's game for Warriors? Because is that right? Same as the Giants?
It's 6 o'clock, I believe.
Wow. So Friday night we're going combo, Giants and Warriors. All right. Well, guys, good show tonight. Ultimately, the Giants got the win. That was good to see. It was great to hear Ned tell some stories about baseball anecdotes and trades and that kind of stuff. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I never really ever get tired of that kind of stuff. It's just like, it adds to Giants lore because of the position that he mans and some of the anecdotes that he can share on trades that we all remember or seasons that we all remember, but maybe none of those little anecdotes ever bubbled up in the media and ever became public. So it's like every time we get Ned talking about, stories about Giant trades and things that have happened from yesteryear and guys that they kick tires on, to me, it always adds like a whole nother chapter of Giants lore I didn't even know before. And I don't know. To me, I get off on that. I think it's terrific. But anyway, Ned's going to join us, periodically throughout the summer, roughly once a week on the post-game shows. We don't want him to work too hard, but it is great to kind of pick his brain and talk a little Giants baseball and also just kind of hear his perspective. Some of the things like, when do you dump the hitting coach? You know what I mean? Or
he could write a great book between his years with the Giants and the Dodgers and all of the different trades and the coaching. And so, I mean, he's got to probably be delicate.
You were asking him about anecdotes, hey, does everybody know when when you have to make a move? It's like, yeah, everybody's totally keenly aware of your roster limitations and you're not getting any, everybody's pretty sharp and pretty shrewd and you're going to pay through the nose many, many times if you want to improve your club. So,
well, yeah, like the DeBond trade. I mean, I was thinking about that and I was thinking, it seems like a guy like Dubon, who's obviously valuable, the Giants thought of is valuable. The Astros, who are a World Series contender, they want him, you know, in their lineup somewhere, kind of that perfect utility guy that can move all around and he can hit and he's got speed. And I'm thinking, you got a career 212 switch hitting catcher for him. That's, you know, and I'm thinking,
crappy trade. You're thinking that's a horrendous trade.
Well, I don't know. It might turn out to be really good, but I'm just saying it just feels like
it feels to me like they didn't value Dubon. Like they've tired of Dubon. Like they were just waiting for Dubon to show a little something, and then they quickly paired him off for, you know, just a catcher. Like, I don't think the catcher they got is like anything incredible. I just think he's a position of need, and they were looking to move Dubon. And also the maybe Listella's Achilles getting right has something to do with it. Maybe Estrada's emergence as a, you know, more of a starter at second base. Maybe that's part of it. You know, it's going to be interesting. I thought the other move that was interesting this week was the addition of Fairchild. Wasn't Fairchild a kind of a relatively high draft choice?
Number 2 from the Reds, yeah.
So maybe Fairchild's a ball player. You know, maybe he'll emerge. You know, every one of these Farhan no-name deals, you always have to kind of do a deep dive and like really see how viable that player really is. Because sometimes you find out that, you know what, I mean, he's done this now a number of times. When you see Yaz and you see some of these guys that he's turned from, you know, Tyro and some of the trade, Luis Gonzalez, some of the moves that he's made under the radar guys, and then saw what they emerged as. It makes you curious every time he makes a move. Is that guy going to be a foundation piece for the Giants going forward? You just never quite know.
Yeah, I mean, I think they. You know, looking at Yaz even compared to last year. Last year, I don't think he was really ever healthy because he got hit in the hand, spring training, came out, got off to a rough start. Still got 25 home runs last year, but which is telling me, you know, he's healthy and he's not on that kind of a pace. He's only hit his 3rd tonight, which makes me think the ball has definitely been deadened because you know, we're 35 games into the season and he's got 3 home runs. You know, that's a pace for like 15, you know, something's because he's healthy and he seems to be hitting better this year. Last year he was I think Yaz is hitting somewhere around 260 right now, if I'm not mistaken. I don't.
He seems like he always takes off when they have this mustache month.
Yeah, he kind of looks like a pirate or something. Like it's a very swashbuckling mustache.
Yeah, him and Slater.
A_Brody7 says Izon Diaz was a good pickup.
Oh, got him from Marlins, yeah.
And I could have swore that Diaz was at one point, wasn't he a key figure in one of their other high-profile trades? Was it the Stanton trade? I think he was.
Wasn't he a top 100 player at one point in his career?
You never know. You never know. You know who's going to emerge when Farhan makes these moves. That's going to do it for us. That's going to do it for us tonight. We're almost at midnight. We're about 9 minutes away from midnight. We've gone for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, just crusting 2.5 hours. So we'll call it quits right here. But gentlemen, good stuff. Final thought on the night: Giants get a 1-run win. NBA conference finals begin tomorrow. Miami in Boston game 1. Warriors Mavericks game 1 on Wednesday night. You know, pretty quiet night in the big leagues for the most part, but the Giants get a nice win. They keep pace with the Dodgers, who also win. Your final thought before we pull the plug and drive off. You know, I got a long commute.
Solid win. I mean, I think we all kind of had that feeling like, oh God, it's going to extras. This is going to be, not only is this going to be a painful loss, but it's going to be a post game going till 1 a.m. because of extras. And so I'm just happy they got the dub today. It's good to see Yaz go yard. And then also just on the Warriors front, man, I'm getting a little nervous at how many people are picking against the Warriors and how many models out
Picking
there.
against the Warriors?
A lot of people, like almost everybody like I listen to is picking Dallas, and it's starting to scare me. And I'm starting to be like, this is now what I think is if Steph shows out and he's like normal Steph expectations, we're going to win. If he's anything lesser than that, I don't think we're going to win.
I think Jason Kidd is doing a really nice job as a coach.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way around that. I think Kidd's doing a really nice job. I've got two guys that I fear in the next round, and I don't know why I fear them because neither really is doing anything. But Reggie Bullock, former North Carolina swingman, 6'7", that range, and Davis Bertans, the former San Antonio Spur, former Wizard, who came in the trade for the 7-3 guy. Those two guys can flat out shoot it. Bullock can shoot it. Bertans can shoot it. So that's my concern. My concern is those guys hitting double figures on threes.
I think Kleber is shooting 50% on threes this postseason also, and he is a Warriors killer. Maxi Kleber, the 6'10" guy, he doesn't start, but he plays starter minutes. And
the guy who dunked the other day and fell on his head.
I'm not sure. Yeah, totally. Yes,
that was ugly.
Yeah, he's had some good 3-point. Yeah, he's got a good shot, and Dinwiddie has always done pretty well against the Warriors, and he played a great game 7 against Phoenix. My thought on the Warriors with this Mavericks is I see it as really a positive. The positives I take out of with the Warriors going in to play Dallas is, number one, they came off of a tough series against Memphis, and that blowout win in Game 5 was just ridiculous, and they were embarrassed. And I think that was good that they were embarrassed so bad and that people were talking about them in such a negative way. How can I think it fuels these guys because they've won 3 titles and they still really never got the respect, especially this group, because it was oh, you couldn't do it without KD, so I think this core, especially, not counting Andre, but Clay, Draymond, and Steph, they want to show what they can do. You remember when KD went out against Portland and they swept a couple years ago?
When he went out against the Rockets and then
they swept the Trailblazers 4-0 in the conference finals. So I just think this group, and they played pretty crappy even in game 6 with all the turnovers. They're going to focus on that, and they're not taking Dallas lightly. So the media picking Dallas, I think, just plays right into their hands.
Yeah, Draymond picked them. I didn't even realize this. I brought this up that Draymond picked them to win the Game 7. He actually picked them before the series started. He picked the Mavericks.
He did. He picked the Mavericks, and he was forced to choose.
There are some people that were saying that the Mavericks were going to be a tougher out than the Phoenix Suns.
This is what
for
kind
weeks. I mean, this is there have been people touting the Mavericks for weeks.
I didn't realize they were that good defensively. They're the number 2 ranked defensive team in the league. It's actually the final 4 teams are the top 4 defensive teams in the regular season. So
Rick Barry's always said defense wins championships.
So
too bad you didn't play any, Rick.
What I'm worried about is that they're so analytical that they don't have turnovers. They don't turn the ball over because the ball's just always in Luka's hands. So in a way that sucks because you don't have as much flow with your offense, but also it means that you don't turn the ball over much. So that kind of worries me. And then I think the big question, and this is where maybe the media is missing it, is they're oh my God, this team just stole this historically great Phoenix team's soul. Was Phoenix actually historically great? Was it possible that Paul was hurt and that the whole Ayton thing got weird and within the team and they just weren't, it kind of self-combusted? Or are people totally underrating the Grizzlies? And actually, the Grizzlies maybe were the second best team in the conference this whole time, and the Warriors kind of struggled versus them, but that was to be expected.
Paul did you see Pat Bev's comments today?
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unbelievable on Chris Paul. His comment about Chris Paul being a cone. We call him cone. And he says, and I think it was Greeny said, well, what do you mean by cone? He says, well, you know, when you're doing a drill against a cone, you make a move one way. What does the cone do? He says, it don't move. He goes, awesome. It's well known among the NBA players. He was, I mean, I know he had that beef against in the playoffs. He took that cheap shot against Paul in the back last year, knocked him flying after he was walking to the bench. But he really was giving Paul. He said about guarding Paul. He says, hey, let's put it this way: if I've got a game against Phoenix, I'm going to go out to dinner.
Right.
Have a glass of wine, get to bed after 10. I'm not even going to worry about getting to bed by 10. I'll work off the sweat in the pregame, and I'll be fine and ready to go. He says, if I'm playing Golden State and Steph, I'm going to bed by 8. No phone calls. I saw that.
I'm telling my girl, don't blow me up, right?
Yeah. This is a
that
totally
was awesome.
Different monster. I thought about it. It's like, is he a unrestricted free agent and he's wanting to play with the Warriors or something? I mean, he just sounds like, I mean, all those.
I take him. I take Pat Beverly, man, another defender like that. We'll clear the chat here. Jim Molay says, have a great night, fellas. Great night to everybody in the chat. Until next time. New pad looks great, Rhino. That's according to Jimmy. He likes the background look there. Rebel 44 says, Kristaps Porzingis, the unicorn. Because you barely see him. That's right. Fable JVC, always need to worry about Dwight Powell when the Warriors play Dallas. Matthew Mears says Warriors will be fine. They'll win in 6. Then he hedges and says 5 possibly. So there you go. Nice show and friendly chat. Rest well all. That's from Pud Fatty. What else do we have? Let's see. Crazy to think all of the Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody no is the conference finals, nothing less. Am I reading that wrong? Can I not read? What's going on there? Okay, so we pretty much get everywhere. Phoenix, we got this one. Fable JVC. Phoenix is far easier to defend than the Warriors are. We're gonna find out about that. And
Murfreesboro tonight.
There we go. Junior G says, shout out y'all, good show. Fable JVC says peace. On that note, gentlemen, we will catch you both tomorrow night. Have a great one.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah. We ain't never fall back. Hold our ground where